I think we're up and running.
Okay, yes, I am.
How are you, Mr. Del Valle?
I'm doing great, man. You got to call me Ken.
I'll call you Ken. Just the first one. The first one's got to be formal. I'll call you Ken after that. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're quite welcome.
I know you're a very, very busy guy, so to make time is very appreciated.
Well, I'm just making the world safe for the criminal element.
Yeah,
that's the job of a criminal defense attorney.
There you go. So you, for people who don't know you, I've known you for quite a few years, and we've had some good conversations. And it's amazing to me that you're still alive, considering all the things you've done and the life that you've lived.
Yeah, me too. I've actually woken up 3 times in my life, going, "What? Shit, I'm still here."
Yeah. Well, I mean, going all the way back to, you grew up in Chicago, right?
I grew up. I was born in Chicago, raised in Mexico City.
Okay.
And then went back to Chicago when I was about 9. Joined the Navy at age 17. I was already in when the Vietnam War started.
Okay.
So I was a Navy corpsman. I ended up doing 3 tours in Nam, 6 months, and 13 months. Got wounded a couple times. That was actually one of the first times I woke up and said, "Oh shit, I'm still here," much to my surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, that was a pretty rough war. And then after you got out of the military, you sort of stayed working in that line of work for a while, right?
Yeah, I worked in Angola for a year.
Okay.
The pay was 36,000 plus another 10 if you stayed the whole year.
If you survived.
Yeah, well, that was rougher than Nam. A lot of guys exaggerate about Nam. Nam wasn't that rough. You ran patrols, you ran ambushes, but eventually you were going to get to a hot meal. You had air cover most of the time. You had artillery cover. You had fast medevacs in case you were wounded. Africa was really different. We were on our own in Africa. If you got out in the bush and you picked a fight you couldn't win, you were going to die.
Oh, wow.
So, but the first time I got shot real bad, what I remember most was the nausea. That was in Vietnam. And just incredible nausea. And I was still trying to work and help my guys out.
So this is before you went to receive medical attention?
I was I was the corpsman. I patched myself up. I got shot here.
Oh.
Yeah. So I patched myself up, and then I went to my fighting hole, and I kept helping my guys who were calling out for corpsmen. We were being overrun. And I was manning a 60. And also helped my guys. And I was trying, the guys that were wounded or peppered with shrapnel or, don't bother me unless you're seriously hurt.
Yeah.
And all your guys have.
Yeah. I mean, for a guy who gets shot and stitches himself and goes and helps other people.
No, I didn't stitch myself
well,
up. I just put on a battle dressing. I put on a battle dressing. And I remember thinking, should I give myself a syringe of morphine? But I didn't. Because I wanted to still stay cognizant and aware of what was going on. And so I patched up a couple of my guys. I crawled to them, went back to my fighting position. I was setting off claymores and covering an area with an M60. And eventually I remember the nausea just hit me like a ton of bricks, and then I kept thinking, shit, am I going to die? Am I going to die? And I said, no, I'm not going to die. Fuck it, I'm not going to die. Then I passed out. And when they, yeah, I mean, that's, what do you think, right?
No, why'd you pass out? Because you had bled too much or what?
Yeah, I kind of bled out, and it's just the trauma and the shock. I don't know why I passed out, but I woke up a couple of days later in the hospital in Phu going, oh my God, I'm still here. Yeah. How nice.
Wow.
That was my first time. So, when you say I'm surprised you're still alive, that was the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. The other 2 were a little, oh, I'm still here, and I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, but that's just your military near-death experiences. You also had you went through some pretty crazy encounters with some crazy people in Chicago. That I think, one time, weren't you in a situation where there was a guy on a bus with a meat cleaver?
Oh no, that was a guy. No. But I went to law school at nights, so I used to write the heavy L. I used to write the L from downtown to the north side, from Jackson to Loyola. It's just maybe a half hour, 40-minute ride.
Okay.
And at night, there's only 2 cars after 9 p.m. I went to school from 5 to 9 p.m. So I get on the L, and I always carried a gun. It was illegal back then, but I didn't give a shit. I always packed. Illegal schmeagle, right?
A law student, someone got a law student who just doesn't give a shit about the law.
Yeah,
that's great.
No, I didn't.
You're the kind of lawyer I would want. You ever seen that scene in Breaking Bad? Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Where the guy goes to look for an attorney, and the drug dealer takes him to Saul.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, trust me, this is the guy that you want. He's not a criminal attorney. He's a criminal attorney." That's what you remind me of right now.
Listen, I've been to Vietnam. I'd worked a year in Africa. I was still doing bodyguard work. I was doing hostage rescue and kidnap rescue. And that's how I paid for college and law school.
Yeah.
I have to say that let me go back a bit. The pay in Africa was $46,000 if you stayed the year. Talking about being a criminal lawyer. When I left Africa, I had $370,000 in banks in Mexico. So, you could back then you could make a lot of money in war.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't stay in the Navy.
How'd you make a lot of money at war? How's that?
There were some banks involved and a couple of armored trucks, and then there was a missing airplane.
Wait! Missing airplane?
Yeah. One of my buddies was a pilot, and then we were actually working for the Portuguese,
Jesus.
and they were trying to stiff us on some money we had coming. So on the way out,
you just took the airplane instead of the money?
We borrowed it and sold it to some people in Marseille, France. The statute of limitations is over.
Yeah.
Long time ago. But anyway.
Oh my God, I'm hanging out with a guy who stole an airplane.
No, I didn't steal it.
You borrowed it.
No. I wrote in it while it was being stolen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you just attorneyed the hell out of that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So actually, I was getting a ride to Marseille, France from Angola. And when we got there, my buddy decided to sell the airplane and not go back. So we both decided that. So we dumped the airplane.
How do you sell an airplane that you don't have a pink slip for, I assume, or whatever airplanes have?
People don't need
you don't go
the
to
kind of people we were dealing with.
You don't go to the DMV.
No. We don't need no stinking pink slips. That's
all right. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's how you sell an airplane.
I won't pry.
No. That was what 1968.
Yeah.
Or early 69. There a lot of
69 was your favorite year, though.
No, actually, I did pretty good. I went to Mexico to go to undergraduate school after Africa.
How come?
I was afraid to come back to the States. All the shit we pulled in Africa.
Oh my God.
I don't want to come back here. I thought I'd get off an airplane and the handcuffs would get slapped on. So I went to school. I went to an American university in Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I got on the GI Bill. I lived in an hacienda. I had a maid. I lived well when I went to college.
Yeah, $400,000 back then was
it was a phenomenal amount of dough.
Yeah.
I lived very well. Went to college. Got a degree in English Lit.
Yeah.
I've always been adventurous, but I've always been a reader, a student.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family that emphasized intellectual development.
Yep. Well, I can tell by your writing. I didn't know you had a degree in English literature until now. But when we became friends on Facebook, I started to see. I would read what you write, and you write very well. I didn't know if that's just a talent or something that like you got a degree in, and you're talented at as well, and you just continuously work on, or just a combination of all that. But sometimes I read what you write, even if I don't particularly care about the topic that you're writing about, just because I enjoy the writing. It's very well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
it's very good.
But when you do legal writing, you have to you have to dot all the I's and cross the T's.
Right.
And in a sense, you need to capture the reader's attention and then articulate your point.
Correct.
Whether the judge buys it or not, if it's easy to go through and readable, you're 2 steps ahead of the game there.
Well, one thing you told me once that was really striking is, I don't remember what we were having a conversation about, but you said something along the lines of, it doesn't matter what the law says, it matters what the jury believes. Am I remembering that correctly?
I was talking about self-defense.
Probably. Yeah, we're probably talking about
the issue of self-defense.
Yeah.
The black letter law can say you may be entitled to self-defense, but if you're being a dick about it, the jury won't care. They will convict you. As a matter of fact, I just finished, I won an appeal in the 8th District Court here. I didn't do the trial, but the defendant wasn't a particularly likable guy. And although he made I think, a valid claim of self-defense, his trial lawyer wasn't able to capitalize on that. And somehow, as a matter of fact, I got the matter reversed because of the wrong jury instruction on the issue of self-defense. As you know, the Texas law has changed to the stand your ground. Now, I can stand my ground. If 2 guys are walking toward me, swearing at me, I can stand my ground and maybe shoot both of them. If I have an issue of disparity, I'm a 73-year-old guy. I'm an old guy with a limp. I've got hip replacements. I've got a laminated back. I've got bad knees. And I could say these 2 guys, but the jury won't care. The jury won't care.
Right.
If I was not showing some kind of attempt to get away,
de-escalate,
to diffuse the situation,
or at least use pepper spray or something.
Look, in today's videos, watch how I'm doing. No, I don't want to. I don't want an argument. Not only am I putting my hands up for possible defense.
Yep, that's called putting up a fence in martial arts.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
By the way, I started karate at age 10.
Yep.
And I'm, no, please, leave me alone. Come on, man, come on. Now, if the jury sees a video of you going, hey, come on, motherfucker, come on. And then I pull out a gun and shoot you. I don't care if I have a stand your ground defense. I'm being a dick about it.
Right.
And I'm likely to be convicted. And there are cases like that, or where you try to avoid the situation. And anybody who gets in that kind of situation nowadays should realize every time you get in a fight, there's going to be 3 cameras on you.
Yeah, no kidding.
So your body language has got to be very, very convincing to a jury.
Yeah, it's like you almost have to take an ass kicking before you give one. I mean,
my rule is, let them knock you down, count the kicks. 1, 2, 3, fire. 1, 2, fire.
Every 3 kicks, you shoot them one time?
You can shoot a different guy every 3 kicks. Of course, I'm joking, but that's just about the way that it works.
Yeah.
It's
you have to so what you're saying is you have to really convey to the jury or the court that was your absolute last resort, or you were going to get killed or seriously damaged, and you had no other choice.
Correct.
Yeah.
As you well know, I pack all the time.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying. I've been packing since I was 15.
Yeah.
That's my standard joke. I never needed a concealed carry permit. Oh, had a gun on me. So, but anyway,
I'm so glad we're friends.
Yeah. Oh no, I've never heard anybody.
No, not because of that, but just because if hopefully I never need a criminal defense attorney, but if I do, I know where to go.
Well, yes, obviously, but just so you know, I know a little bit about real estate too.
Yeah.
So, but the point is,
what do you mean? You know a little bit about real estate?
In case you ever have a real estate problem too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or divorce, or I've been practicing. It'll be 42 years in May.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So you never practice in a vacuum.
Right.
You pick up things here and there. And in the year 2000, I took the New Mexico bar exam, which was after 21 years of practice. And I actually enjoyed preparing for a bar exam that I knew what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So none of us practice in a vacuum. And, do I do divorce? No, I'm not going to do your divorce for $200 an hour.
Yeah.
But I did a divorce for a very wealthy woman, and I got paid $110,000 for $110,000 for 10 days of trial. Guess what? I'll do a divorce.
Jesus. Yeah.
Right? You got a real estate matter? I'm not going to handle it.
Was the woman really wealthy, or was her husband really wealthy?
Husband.
Okay.
I got her $7 million. So I was worth my money.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I got her $7 million.
Oh my
God. But there's certain trial skills.
You ever look up, sorry to interrupt you ever do any research on when the top 100 wealthiest women in the world got their wealth from?
Mostly from ex-husbands.
Mostly from ex-husbands. Yeah, like over 90% of them.
Really?
There's like 5 who started a business, and the rest just married some poor dummy. Yeah, yeah, it's rough. I'll pull up. We can look at it later.
The old cheaper to keep her is,
it's cheaper to keep her.
There's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
Well,
look, a couple of earplugs are cheaper than a divorce.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I was talking to, my previous employer, Paul. One time I was talking to him. He's just a real funny guy.
He's a lot of fun.
He's a lot of fun. And one time we were talking about marriage and girlfriends and dating and all that. And he goes, "My advice to you is get yourself a nice wife and then have a pretty girlfriend." I was like, that's I guess you can't argue with that. That's one point of view.
No, I got a better one.
Okay.
I got a better one. Make somebody else's wife your pretty girlfriend.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Look, then you're not the guy who's here's the whole thing. How old are you?
28.
28. You don't want to be the guy they call at 2 a.m. to come help them fix the flat tire on the expressway. That's good. That's their boyfriend. That's their husband, right? You want to be the guy that shows up on Tuesday and Thursday, gives her a good screwing, and then you see you around, baby. You give her a bottle of perfume on her birthday. At your age, that's the ideal guy to be. That's the ideal guy to be. No.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Well,
I'm gonna have to process that for the next few minutes.
Yeah, most guys your age do. But listen, I've been there. It's here's how typical relations used to work. You meet a girl, you develop a relationship, eventually you get her pregnant, now you have to get married. But with birth control, most of the time you don't have that problem anymore. Right. If you're an intelligent person, and have some degree of self-control, you're not going to be getting your girlfriend pregnant, right. Especially at your age. That stuff happens when you're 17, 18, 19. It's happened to me. I got my girlfriend pregnant at age 16. That's how I end up in the Navy at age 17. Okay. Oh, that's what good Catholic boys did back then. You knocked up your girlfriend, you went in the military service, and then you got divorced 5 years later.
So you consider yourself a good Catholic boy?
No, I'm an atheist, but I used to be a good Catholic boy.
Okay.
I'll tell you an interesting story.
All right.
When I got to Vietnam, the first time, when I was in processing, I shit you not, I must have gone to confession every day for 3 days in a row. Just in case I got killed, I wanted to go to heaven with a clean heart, a clean soul, and a clean spirit. 25 months later, I was confirmed atheist.
From going to church?
No, from war.
Okay.
They say there's no atheists in a foxhole. I became one. That's how I got to be one.
Interesting. From the things that you saw at war, the killing, the violence, it shook your faith?
No, I don't know if you could say shake your faith, but maybe realize that whatever faith I had was rather unsophisticated and not really based on the reality of how the world operates. I just quit caring about it. It just went away by itself, and I went through a period of agnosticism, but by the time I was done with Africa, there's no God. That was my thing, uh, and I never really looked back on it. I like organized religion. I believe in organized religion.
Really?
Yeah, I think it does wonders for a great many people.
Okay.
Organized religion.
I can see that.
Yeah. Organized religion has
it's like a compass for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only a moral compass, but I believe in the concept of teaching children to believe in something, to have the concept of sin, of right from wrong.
Sure.
And some of the ancient traditional human values of Western and Eastern culture.
Yeah.
As well as, the development of a persona based on certain more standards of morality. But I think most people eventually outgrow those things. In my case, I just outgrew them in one fell swoop because I was in such I wouldn't call it violence, war's really boring, punctuated by moments of extreme action.
Okay. It's a good definition.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, we used to spend a lot of time doing nothing.
Right.
Then we go out on patrol and let's say you go out 3 nights in a row and nothing happens. 4th night, the shit hits the fan. And, and then I'm having to take care of or calling a medevac.
Yeah.
One of the things that really,
I just want to make a quick point real quick about what you said about religion giving people guidance, because I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson, and I know that you are as well. At least you said you agree with about 90% of his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but one thing he says that I really like, he's been asked about religion so many times in interviews, and he said that it's how does he say it? I don't want to misquote him. That he doesn't know if there is a God, but he acts as if God exists, or something like that. Something along those lines. And I think that's fair. I think that's
not
fair.
only that, it's a community.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, if you're Catholic, if you're an American Catholic from Alabama, you can go to Peking, China, and go to a Catholic church, and you belong to a community.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's a sense of community throughout the world based on religion.
Unless you go to a Baptist church, then you got problems.
Well, yeah, but
actually, I'm going to do a quick plug for the next. I think in 2 weeks, I'm a friend of mine who's a priest. He's coming on the show because I want to pick his brain about all that stuff. Like, first of all, why are there so many different churches and denominations and versions of the Bible and all that? But anyway, that's what I'm going to talk to him about. But
I could address that too, because I'm a great student of history and religion.
Okay,
go
ahead. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, and the reason that is, at a certain point, the Catholic Church, which was the dominant Christian church in the world, became very abusive in very many ways. They were selling, and Martin Luther, the German priest, I believe it was.
Well, I read about him, and that's one of the things that I'm curious about is like, why is there? So there's a whole denomination of the church called the Lutherans who follow Martin Luther, who was he. When did he do his work?
Around the 1500s.
1500s, yeah.
Around the 1500s, and he basically tacked up, I think, the Edict of Nantes, if I recall. I may have that wrong, and it was either 13 or 93. And here's what's wrong with the church. And basically, what he was against was priests selling indulgences.
Yes,
an indulgence was,
I just read about that.
I forgive you if you pay me money.
Correct.
I get to talk to God. I'll get God to forgive you.
It's a great business.
It's a great business. God, sometimes I'm sorry I didn't go into it, but I don't have the heart to scam.
Yeah.
I'll steal an airplane from you, but I'm not going to scam some poor.
But only if you're a bad guy, right?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but who are you? Who are you? Who are the most vulnerable people? To that kind of religious, and I'm not calling all religion a scam, but
Well, there's definitely people who take advantage of their position and influence over weak-minded people, and like you said, they start selling them. I read a story a while ago about a guy who was selling real estate in heaven. Did you hear about that?
Oh, that's got to be great.
It's got to be great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details, but that was the gist of it. Is I don't know if he got arrested. I have to go back
Oh, I
and look,
think
but there was
so.
a guy.
Now I recall, yeah.
He was selling people real estate in heaven.
You got to be super dumb.
You have to be so dumb. But people are susceptible to all that. I mean, all manner of mental manipulation, because as a martial artist, how many fake martial arts videos do you see? You see a ton of them. Oh, these ninjas and these guys doing all this ridiculous stuff. There's
I got a great martial arts story for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I opened up a dojo in Chicago on Devon Avenue. Sometime after I came back, after I got out of undergraduate school. And I was open for it was more of a black belt club because I was fully employed by the government, but I wanted a place to work out without all the bullshit from different dojos.
Sure.
So it was a lot of black belts, and a lot of the dojo members were cops, who were heavily into the martial arts at those times. So we had a good time, and we also taught white belts and so forth and so on. And by the way, I was teaching a excellent combat style called Shobokan, not Shotokan, Shobokan.
Shotokan is what I did as a kid.
Yeah, I know. That's a good style to start with, because it teaches you the basics and it teaches you good form.
The only problem that I see with the very traditional karate training is it's a point system. And as soon as somebody makes contact with a solid punch or kick, as soon as someone lands a strike, they stop the match and then you start again.
Yeah, right.
And in a real fight, they're going to keep hitting you. So like one of those guys goes up against a kickboxer or a Thai boxer, and they land a punch, and they're expecting a pause and a reset, and that reset doesn't come. They just get knocked out. They get obliterated.
Let me diverge a little bit. Had a great black belt student. This guy did beautiful kata, great at sparring, good athlete, young guy. I was in my 20s too. This guy was about 19 years old. So he got his ass kicked in the street, and I went to see him in the hospital. I said, what happened? And I always emphasize, don't stop. You're not going to, one good punch is not going to stop a fight.
Right.
It's really difficult to stop an aggressive attacker with blunt force trauma with one hit from your body.
You'd have to knock him out clean.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it if you get the right hit,
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to incapacitate a determined guy.
Sure.
Even if he's going to fall over in 2 seconds, he still has 2 seconds to. I said, what happened? He goes, well, this guy came at me. He lowered his head and ran at me, and I did a perfect punch. Caught him up here, broke his nose.
Nice.
And then what happened? He went through the punch, grabbed me by the waist, slammed me on the ground. I hit my head on the cement.
Oh no!
And I woke up in the hospital.
Oh no!
Yeah. So
you thought that you thought that the punch was it because you landed a good punch.
Was it. He thought the punch was it.
But he was dazed for a second, and then he got a hold.
No, the guy he took the hit, broke the guy's nose. The guy's nose, the attacker's nose, was broken.
Yeah.
But the attacker didn't give a shit.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you broke my nose. Fuck you. I'm still gonna get to you.
Yeah.
And I've been in a couple of fights like that, where I'm going, shit, what do when's this guy going to fall? Let me finish telling you the story about
Oh, sure.
So I opened up my academy was called the Golden Eagle Karate Academy.
I like it.
Yeah. It was real nice stuff. Great 1970s shit, right? So, one day, about 12 guys from the Green Dragon Society walk in. They all just showed up in the middle of the class. And they're wearing these cheesy looking Chinese pajamas, kung fu outfits. And their leaders tell me this. They go, you have to have our approval to have a karate academy in Rogers Park. And I'm thinking, these fucking guys think they're in 16th century China or something. This is 1970s Chicago.
Yeah.
So you have to fight us. And they had these. Now these guys,
you got to fight them on a round table, like
some goofy shit, right? So these guys, they had actually been in the newspaper because they had showed up at another dojo, and that dojo owner had gone for it. They started fighting, and somebody got stuck in the neck with one of those cheesy spears that if you shake it real hard, the blade bends.
Oh yeah.
You know, but they were able to kill the guy. Some guy died in a dojo melee. You know, so I said, all right, come back Friday. You know, I'll fight all of you. You know, so they come back Friday. They come back Friday and they all got their little green kung fu outfits, you know, their cheesy weapons.
Yeah.
So I said, are you sure that I have to fight you in order to stay open? Yes. What happens if I don't fight you? Well, we'll burn your dojo or we'll kill you. They're all talking shit to me, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So at that point I go, all right, come on, guys. And I had about half a dozen cops in the dressing room listening to this shit. They come out with pump shotguns, put these guys down, right? And then they handcuff them and they throw them in a paddy wagon. And I have to be in court that Monday to file charges at Belmont and Western. Well, at this time, I haven't even started law school, right? So I show up on Monday in court. They bring these guys out. They were beat to shit. They were all bloody. Their green pajamas were in tatters. You know, they all had these silk, and to make it worse, it was like lime green. You know, where some of them had white fringe and shit. These guys looked like they got caught at a gay parade. You know, they got beat up by some homophobes. But you know, I'm going, holy shit, what happened to these guys?
That's
you know, wait a minute.
Up at a gay parade.
So anyway, I show up. I show up to class that night. I open up the dojo. Some of the cops come in. I go, what the fuck happened, man? What'd you guys do? He says, well, they were handcuffed in the back of a paddy wagon. It's just hard. Started hitting them in the face with a rifle butts, with a shotgun butts. I go, no shit. Yeah. He says, we welcome them to the 20th century. I'll never forget that line. We welcomed them to the 20th century. You know, where do you think you are? You know, the 20th century China.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 15th century China. It's just, welcome to the 20th century, asshole. So that's what happened. I eventually.
Oh my goodness.
I eventually declined.
What a rude awakening.
Yeah, I eventually declined prosecution, and I let them all plead to trespassing instead of attempted extortion, which is what they were charged with. I had to testify under oath. Yeah, they told me this, and of course I had, you know, the half dozen cops behind a very thin wall in the dressing room.
Yeah,
you know, listening to all this shit. So there was more than enough witnesses to eventually convict these guys. But I figured they learned their lesson, you know. And that whole martial arts, there's some people that live in a fantasy.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, that's what I was just talking about. You just touched on something right now that's the perfect segue to something I want to ask you about. But I just want to say, yeah, the fantasy world of martial arts. You know who Bas Rutten is?
Who?
Bas Rutten. He's a big time MMA fighter from back in the day. He
fought I think he's almost as old as I am.
He's old now, yeah, but he's a great fighter. I believe he won his last 22 fights before he retired. He's really good, and he has a story about one time he was teaching a jiu-jitsu class, and these ninjas come into his class, and they're not in the class, they're just on the side running their mouths. So he'll do an arm bar and he'll just hear them muttering like, oh, well, if you do that, we'll just bite you. And and then he does a rear naked choke. He was showing a rear naked choke, and one of the girls is like, oh, you can't do that to me. I'll just poke your eye out. He goes, all right, come on. he's like, all right, come
I know where
here.
this is going.
Yeah, he's like, all right, come over here. So he goes, all right, we're going to do a demonstration because I want you to show me how your eye pokes work. I'm going to get you in the rear naked choke. And so he puts her in the choke, and he says, I'm going to count to 3 and we're both going to go. And if you touch my eye, I'm going to break your neck.
And she said,
she's like, yeah, exactly. She's like, whoa, wait a minute. What'd you say? She's like, if you come near my eye, I'm going to break your neck. And at that point, the ninjas were just like, okay, yeah, we better not mess with this guy. He's going to kill us. And I mean, it's so true. It's just, I don't know, people just get fed a whole bunch of crap and they believe it. People are majority of people, you know, if they've been bullshitted long enough, they just start believe it to be true, whatever that lie is. But I want to ask you something. I need to pull up the quote because I actually copy pasted this from one of our Facebook conversations. And so you had posted something about Trump calling soldiers who died at war losers.
Yeah.
And I asked you to show me some evidence of that. Like I wanted to see a video of him saying it because I did some research. I couldn't find any. I said, do you have any evidence of that? You said, no, it's all hearsay from supposedly persons present when he said it. Remember, even though hearsay is not admitted in evidence, there are 24 exceptions to that rule. What does that mean? There are 24 exceptions to that rule.
Hearsay. Let me explain to you what hearsay.
Okay.
I can't take the stand and say, Jamie Barbar told me that the light was green. The reason I can't say that is because if somebody wants to cross-examine Jamie Barbar, they can't, because Jamie Barbar's not there. I'm saying it.
Right.
Nobody gets to ask you, well, how far away from the light were you? Well, with the lighting conditions, how is your sight? Where did you remember that traffic light being? Is it in the center? Is it on the side? Did you see? Were you sitting in a car? Were you standing up? Were you sitting down? Was there anything obstructing your view? Correct? Now, that's how I would cross-examine you. But if you're not there, I can't testify to that. I can't testify to what you said. And the reason that...
So hearsay means you don't have the witness to back up the claim that you're making?
Correct.
Okay.
But, no, you're speaking for somebody else.
Right. Yeah, so that the person,
The person
that person is not there.
Witnessed the event is not testifying.
Okay.
Somebody is testifying on the stand. And
so I'm saying Ken said that Trump said this, but you're not there to actually say it yourself.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Nobody heard him say it.
Yeah.
But okay. And the reason for that is in the legal system, you have a right to confront your accusers.
Yes. Sixth Amendment.
Actually, it's the seventh.
Seventh.
Okay. But you have a right to confront your accusers at trial. And an open and public trial and the right to confront your accusers. Your lawyer gets to cross-examine the guy who's saying that the light was green. So they put somebody else on there to say that the light was green, and that the light was red, or that the guy was holding the gun.
Yes.
Jamie told me that he saw the defendant holding a gun. Where's Jamie to be cross-examined?
Right.
And that defeats the defendant's right of confrontation, the person who actually claims to have seen him with the gun.
Well, it's really interesting that you use the traffic light example because that's why traffic light cameras that used to give you a citations, those got pulled, right? Because they were deemed unconstitutional because you can't confront your accuser because it's a camera.
Not only that, because there were delays in them and they were not reliable.
Right.
Now, there are 24 exceptions to the hearsay rule.
Okay.
Somebody can, and I'll give you a classic example. I recently defended a woman who was trying to break in to her boyfriend's house in a jealous rage. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The boyfriend's in the inside, and he's calling 911. And the boyfriend says, she's breaking my window right now. You can hear the woman screaming outside. Let me in. I know you had somebody else in there. She's hysterical. She's obviously drunk and hysterical. She's breaking the windows, trying to kick in the door, right? Now, I'm representing the woman, the defendant. The boyfriend refuses now to testify against her. And can the prosecution use that 911 call? And the answer is yes. Yes, because it's called an excited utterance. And there's an element of reliability in an excited utterance. I'm explaining to you what's the most common evidentiary exception to the hearsay rule. It's an excited utterance. If I'm on the phone with 911 saying, Joe Smith, it's Joe Smith trying to kill me. Joe Smith's breaking in my door. Joe Smith's got a knife. He's going to kill me. Oh my God, he's killing me. And then I get killed. I obviously can't testify against Joe Smith. But my 911 conversation is an excited utterance, and it has an indicia of reliability. And what you want to avoid other than the confrontation issue, is the possibility of a lack of reliability. Now, let's take that example of the woman that I represent, okay? Trying to break in. Let's say she had, instead of trying to, well, when the boyfriend didn't want to testify, the prosecutor said, I can still convict her because it's an excited utterance, so I can get the 911 call in front of the jury. She chose not to. She gave my client a break because she realized, what the situation was. And my client it was a clean person without any record. And so they gave her a break, they dismissed. Or they had her plead to attempt trespassing, a Class B misdemeanor or something like that. I forgot how it fit. Yeah. But I didn't have to go to trial. Okay, now, what else has such an indicia of reliability that it's difficult to challenge?
What's that word, indicia?
Indicia.
I've never heard of that.
An indicator.
Okay.
An indicator of reliability. Okay. I'm sorry for speaking legalese.
Yeah, that's all right. I learned a new word.
Yeah. It's an indicia, a nexus. Indicia nexus. Write them down. Yeah. Anyway, what else has an indicia of reliability? Well, medical records do. Because if you go to an emergency room, if you go to an emergency room, you're not going to lie about your symptoms, right? So if you go to an emergency room and say, I got stabbed in my left arm, well, you're not going to lie about that. So if you're not around to testify,
what do you mean you're not going to lie about that?
Well, are you going to lie? That's what the indicia of reliability.
But don't people lie in instances of maybe they were involved in some kind of altercation? They got shot by Correct. Somebody that they killed. Correct. They go to the emergency room and Correct. They say, I was cleaning a gun and it accidentally went off and I have a bullet in my leg. Yeah. They want to cover up that they were in a
Correct.
In a gunfight.
Correct.
Okay.
And now the fact that you went into the emergency room could be used against you. And the prosecution could argue that you try to cover up the fact that your wound came from an illegal act that you committed.
Yes.
But that's not the issue. Can your medical records get in? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
They can put in your medical records to show that you showed up.
Okay.
At the, I recently tried a real strange case. And it was a simple domestic between a stepfather and a kid that, who really disliked each other. And so the kid,
how old's the kid?
He's 19.
Okay.
They got in a fist fight over a pair of socks.
Jesus.
Welcome to my world.
Oh my God. What kind of socks were they? That's so ridiculous.
Well, they were the father's socks and the kid was wearing them.
Okay.
And listen, I've got 4 sons.
They wear your socks?
They all have at some point or another. Fuck with my shit. Yeah. And it's just you scream at them, but you're not going to get in a fist fight with them. But anyway, this was a contentious relationship between a stepfather and a stepson.
Yep.
In any event.
Okay.
And so the stepfather, after the fight, calls up 911. I've just been beat up. I've done this. I've done that. Oh, I'm hurt. I'm bleeding. He choked me. He did this to me. He did that to me. Blah, 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 blah. And then they come get him. And there's a video of him being taken away in a gurney, in a wheeled gurney with a neck brace, right? Now, the guy doesn't show up at trial. The stepfather.
Okay.
The prosecution says, okay, medical records are admissible. And so this is an excited utterance. I'm arguing it's not an excited utterance. The law of excited utterance requires that the utterance be made contemporaneously with the event. You can't wait 10 minutes and then call and say, my girlfriend tried to break in. It's no longer an excited utterance because you've had time to think about what you're going to say to the police.
Yeah.
Was that 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3? This was about 10 minutes afterwards. So I'm thinking I got it knocked because the father didn't show up.
So you've had time to calm down and fabricate whatever story
That's
you
right,
want.
because the element of fabrication, the longer you take to call the police,
the more you can come up
the
with
more
a
you
story.
can fabricate.
Yeah.
You know, fabricate's a great word. And so I argued, but the judge let it, they can proceed.
Huh.
So they proceed against this guy. Now I got the medical records. But here's how I used it. I turned to the jury and I go, look at the medical records. This guy went into the emergency room. He spent 3 hours. You know, doesn't matter what he says happened. Look at the medical records. They found out he had a lump on his head, and they gave him 2 Advils and sent him home. So regardless of what he said on that phone call, and I talked to jurors afterwards, and I said, even though he's not here, don't let him lie. You know, don't let him lie.
Yeah.
If he were here for me to cross-examine him, and here's the interesting thing. Closing argument came. The state, and here's the shitty thing about this. The prosecutors who did this really took this matter to trial just so they could do a trial without a complaining witness. You know, it was a young prosecutor and he wanted that experience. Well, you know, I shoved it up his ass as far as I could. You know, because my opening and my opening line, at the and my closing was, I read the jury that their Seventh Amendment right to confront some. I put the mom on. I asked her, "Where's your husband? He went to work today. Did he know he had court yet? Why isn't he here? He didn't want to come."
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the funny part about it is I says, why isn't he here? They objected because her answer would be hearsay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the judge is letting a whole hearsay thing, you know, under the excited utterance exception, which it was not. So those are the things you battle. Now, this was a bullshit little misdemeanor domestic violence. But this kid, and it took me 3 years to get the goddamn thing to trial. You know, but this kid in the interim had gotten married, had 2 kids, and why is he going to have a domestic violence conviction on his record?
Yeah.
You know, which will prohibit him from ever possessing a firearm.
Yep.
And number 2, will really hurt him, you know, as he goes along in life. Yep. Because the minute you read, you know, domestic violence conviction, you think, oh, this guy beat up his girlfriend or his wife.
And most jobs that you're going to apply for in your life, any job of a certain level of professionalism or sophistication is going to run a background check.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to get into medical school. You're not going to be able to get into law school. You're not going to be able to.
You can, and you can overcome those things.
But a lot of people it takes like 10 years to seal a record or something.
No. I've got buddies who are lawyers who got caught, you know, dealing dope when they were kids, and you know, the 1920s. You know, I got buddies who've been, who are lawyers who've been convicted of tax evasion. I got buddies who are doctors who have been previously convicted, you know, of burglary. Right. You know, so you can overcome these things by showing whatever examining board you're going before, you know.
Yeah, you're rolling the dice on your fate, though.
Yeah, oh yeah. Not only that.
Always, I mean, that video that I sent you a while ago of these 2 lawyers from the Innocence Project talking about the cases that they've seen and how many people that they've gotten off of death row who they were because they were able to prove that these people are wrongfully convicted. I mean, it was an enormous amount. They made it from watching that video. I'm like, well, good Lord, is anyone on death row actually guilty? And it was just the prosecutor was stubborn and was set on convicting that person because they're going after their own. You know, they just want to read their name in the paper.
It's an ego thing.
It's an ego thing, and nobody's actually looking into the facts as to what actually happened and whether this person is truly guilty or not. They're not even running DNA tests. They're not looking at fingerprints. They're not doing anything. They're just like, oh, well, we found him 2 blocks away from the scene with blood on him, so he's the.
It's never really that simple. There's always a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, but there's nobody's ego should be involved in the
shouldn't
process.
be. Yeah.
You know, no lawyer should have his ego. You know,
have you ever met a person who acts completely without ego in any area of life? anybody who's completely unbiased, whether it's whatever it is that they're doing, whether they're a doctor, whether they're a teacher, whether they're a prosecutor, everybody's always got some kind of ego that shapes their behavior to some degree.
I think that the older you get,
and they can say, "Oh, well, the judge is supposed to be indifferent, at least pretend to be indifferent." But if there's somebody who really gets under the judge's skin, the judge is human. The prosecutor is human.
Yes, but you tend to outgrow that the longer you're in the biz. It doesn't. It's never.
Good point.
Yeah, it's not about you.
I can see that. That's actually an interesting point, because I always give the example, like my sister used to be, if I'd ever, like one time I went hunting, and I just had, I didn't actually go hunting. I shot a bird with a pellet rifle in our yard. Mm-hmm. I called it hunting.
Did you have your camel?
Yeah, right. I just shot. This was, we were teenagers, and I had a pellet rifle, and I shot a bird in our yard, and she saw the dead bird, and she started freaking out because there was a little drip of blood on the side of the bird's head. And then she goes to medical school, and she's just having a casual conversation over lunch about cutting up cadavers. And it just it became normal to her. It's just, she doesn't even think about it.
It's called habituation.
Like you're saying, you don't even think about it. You're at the court and you don't even think
it's
about
habituation.
It. Yeah. That makes sense.
And here's where an experienced trial lawyer comes in. You know which buttons to push, which levers to pull. And we're not to step in shit. It's not about you.
Yeah.
Can I make a 12-year-old girl cry on the witness stand? Oh, yes, I can.
Yeah.
But then who's the asshole? I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the whole point.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the things, your ego.
Isn't that what makes people effective lawyers?
No.
Is that when somebody's on the stand, they get whatever they need to get out of them without any thought as to how it's going to make them look as a person?
No, it's not how it makes you look. It's them taking it out on your client.
Them taking it out on your client?
Jury taking it out.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember I tried a case in Las Cruces maybe 10 years ago, and I got a not guilty. And there was one holdout in the jury. Eventually, the judge had to admonish the jury to come to a verdict. They sent out 2 notes. We can't read. There's one holdout. And they went back, and the guy came out, and it was this guy that had thought that I was disrespectful of the judge because I did not ask, may I approach, every time I walked up to a witness, without even knowing that the judge has a rule. You asked the first time, may I approach the witness, Your Honor? And that judge, once he grants you permission to do that, you can keep going back and forth.
Okay.
Because it's kind of dumb to, every time I need to show you a document, may I approach? Yes. So this guy was...
That sounds like a judge who's got his ego in check.
Most judges do. Good judges do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all human.
Yeah. But some judges want to play that role of like, you must ask me for permission in my courtroom for everything.
No. They experience.
Maybe that's just in movies.
That's just in movies. That's just in movies.
Okay.
Yeah, goofy judges.
That's my experience.
Goofy judges don't get reelected.
My experience extends as far as the show Suits and Traffic Court. And for a while, probably from about 18 to 22, I was a regular at Traffic Court. I represented myself. I got myself off of at least 20 citations. I became quite good at it. But anyway, I didn't interrupt you.
I think you're ready to steal a plane now.
yeah, maybe so. Right? Yeah,
we have to go to Africa.
Well, I'm from the Middle East. I shouldn't even joke about that. Anyway,
but most judges keep themselves in check.
Yeah,
most judges. Listen, with today's social media, most judges are, I would say, 95% of the judges are pretty, And look, here's what I want in a judge: a good lawyer. Okay. I don't care if he combs his hair to the side or she parts her, or she wears,
Yeah.
big hoop earrings or whatever. I want a good lawyer on the bench. If somebody's a good lawyer, they get it.
Yeah.
They understand.
Someone capable of assessing actual events and evidence and argument.
Right. People who know. And it takes a while to gain that experience.
Yes.
I think that judges should be elected to 8-year terms, rather than 4-year terms. It takes about 3 years for a judge to get to know the lay of the land. That's why federal judges get lifetime appointments.
During those 3 years, though, can't you make a lot of bad calls and ruin a lot of people's lives?
Yep. I got a better way of doing it.
Not really.
Yeah. Most judges don't. Well, let me tell you something. There's some real egotistical lawyers, but they're not real trial lawyers.
Right.
A lot of guys will profile, get themselves a lot of publicity and something.
Yeah.
But they're not the workmen that you need to be. I know what that judge wants. I know where I'm going with my case. I know what I'm going to do.
You've got to be a hell of a salesman or woman.
Not just that. No, you need to have a mind that thinks, well, if you went to the left, why did you end up on the right?
Mm-hmm.
If you did this, why did that happen? If this is here you go. I got a kid. He's got 22 kilos of meth in the trunk of his car.
Jesus.
Okay. And he says to me, I didn't know it was there. Right? I said, all right, if you want to go that route, you're going to be looking at a minimum of 10 to life.
Jeez.
Right? Did you get that? Yeah. Now, you want me to try to convince a jury that you didn't know you had 22 kilos of meth in your car? That somehow somebody put 22 kilos of meth in a compartment in your car.
Yeah, that's about 50 pounds. That's a lot.
I'm not thinking of that. Not only is it a lot of mystery, for a lot of human beings.
Yeah.
Because that's a horrible drug, but it's also legally, some that makes people's eyebrows go up.
Right.
So anyway, I say, here's the deal. Who would put 22 kilos of meth in somebody's car and not let them know? I said, number one, how did they get your car long enough to build a secret compartment in it?
Yeah.
Number two, what if you found the meth in your car? Right?
Right.
You would call the police and they would lose their 22 kilos.
Right.
Number three, what if you found the meth in your car and you stole the meth and sold it on your own?
Right.
Number four, what if you got to where you were going? How did they know where you were going so they could have people at the other end pick up the meth in your car?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I said,
yeah, did think about all that.
Yeah, you hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling you is how lawyers think.
Yes.
I as a lawyer think.
You're peeling back the onion.
Absolutely. Tell you another great story.
Yeah.
Got a kid a long time ago in Chicago.
But what happened with that guy? Did you end up defending him or what happened?
Oh yeah. I defended him. He pled guilty. He pled guilty and got the benefits of a deal.
Okay.
Oh, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
You're going to trial in a case like that. You're going to get, well, and forget about
I'm
that.
assuming so I'm assuming like he did a few years and time served.
Oh yeah. No. He'd do at least, I think that
if it was his first offense, they'll cut him some slack, give him a
yeah. Well, you get, there's a whole.
Does cutting deals have anything to do with how well the representing attorney knows the prosecution? Like if you're buddies with the prosecutor, they're
not going to do anything.
You can maybe sway them and get a better deal.
No.
Like, hey, this is a good kid.
I can't get a plea agreement without it being approved by whatever prosecutor is in front of me, by their supervisor.
Okay.
That's
actually
nothing's good is going to happen.
Yeah.
Here's what can happen. If they're afraid that you'll win, you might get a better deal.
Mm.
If they've seen you win trials that other people said, "Oh shit, this can't be won," and you walk out of there with a not guilty, their ears will perk up when you walk into the room.
Right.
But they're not going to give you anything extraordinary. Now, having said that, prosecutors and defense lawyers are always there. Clients come and go. So I'm not going to make an enemy I don't have to make.
Yes.
I'm not going to be a dick to a prosecutor.
Sure.
I'm not going to be a jerk. I'm not going to act like, I'm Mr. Big Defense trial attorney.
Right.
If I have to throw down, I'll throw down, but I know. Here's the other thing. Let's say I would have gone to trial on this kid. He was looking at least, remember I said minimum of 10
to life.
To life. But based on that amount, this kid was looking at about at least 15 years.
Jeez.
All right?
Yeah, your life is over.
If I can talk this kid into pleading for 2.5, 3 years, or maybe even 4, I'm doing him a benefit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I take big cases with heavy duty money, I tell the client, look, just because you're paying me a big fee doesn't mean I'm not going to end up pleading you guilty.
Right. Yeah. So when you assess the situation and you decide, look, there's no way in hell any jury in the world is going to find you innocent. You say, okay, so then we need to look at how much mitigation to the damage can we possibly do?
Nothing. No, you're not going to do any mitigation.
Let's get the best deal that we can. Instead of 15 years, let's try to get it down to 3, and you count your blessings and you do your 3 years, and hopefully you survive.
Yeah, you got to take the hit.
Yeah. I mean, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right?
Well, I call drug dealing poor people's capitalism.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How so?
Let me tell you, one of the biggest secrets of drug dealing in the United States is that there are hundreds
poor
of
people's capitalism.
Yeah. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people who bootstrap themselves into the middle class by dealing drugs. Not everybody's a street thug. Not everybody keeps going. There's a lot of people who make decent money. They put together a stash. I know guys who paid for law school. I know guys who paid for med school while dealing. I know people who've opened up a restaurant or car wash or laundromat or bait shop or, a fix a boat service, and then they quit. But what they do is they use their winnings, to start along the middle class path of life. I know, literally.
So they're using it as a way to generate capital to get into a legitimate business.
Correct.
And they're smart enough to say, all right, this is enough to start a business. I'm not going to get greedy and keep doing it. I got lucky. I got away with it. I'm done.
At this point, I have too much to lose.
Yes.
You know how many times I've heard that? At this point, I've got too much to lose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, they had nothing to lose.
Well, what do you got
except their freedom.
Yeah. They're willing to risk that because they can't risk capital.
Yes.
So, they're gonna risk their freedom.
They'd rather risk their freedom.
That's all they have.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's all you've got.
Listen,
that's the only thing you can bet with.
My grandma could be pushing kilos and she's dead.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go out and find a source on this hand and a buyer on this hand. And you buy for 10 and sell for 12.
Right.
I mean, whether you're selling Band-Aids or kilos of Coke, it's the same principle.
A sale's a sale.
Yeah, a sale's a sale.
Yeah.
And whatever you get in the middle, let me tell you.
Wait, I should not have said that. I'm a salesman and I'm actually legally a drug dealer.
You are. Yeah, you're in the drug business.
I work for a pharmacy.
You're pharmaceutical rep.
Yeah, I should have been careful. Get me out of this, Ken.
No problem. He's got a prescription. Your Honor.
Yeah.
Tell you a great cocaine story.
Okay. All right.
I get this guy. He's passed away now. This is in late 80s, right? And a Colombian kid in Chicago. And he gets busted with 2 kilos of Coke, right? And, I'm looking at it and his wife gives me a small retainer and I go see the guy. I'm talking to him in jail in Cook County. And he goes, listen, Ken, they only found 2 kilos, but I had 7 kilos. I want you to go tell my wife where they're at so she can get them out of there.
Jeez.
I go, no. He goes, why? I go, no. He goes, I'll give you 5,000. Now, this is in the, I go, no. He goes, well, why? Just do me that favor. I go, here's why. And again,
you're playing chess.
No, I'm not playing chess at all.
Okay.
What I'm thinking of is I'm thinking like a lawyer. I'm thinking steps ahead.
Chess,
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I said, look, suppose I go tell your wife. She goes to get the other 5 kilos, and they're watching those 5 kilos. And she gets popped picking up those 5 kilos. You're going to think I set her up. Right? Yeah. Suppose she goes there and she finds the 5 kilos and decides she and her boyfriend are going to sell them and tells you they weren't there. You're going to think I stole them.
Yep.
Suppose she goes there and she doesn't find the 5 kilos. I'm the guy who knew where they were. And so when she shows up, you're going to think I stole them. Suppose she goes there and finds the 5 kilos and takes them to wherever she was going to take them. And then 6 months from now, she gets busted and she goes, Ken Del Valle participated in a conspiracy for me to get 5 kilos. I said, man, you ain't got enough money to get me to go tell your wife where the 5 kilos are.
Yeah, you're in a losing situation no matter what.
The guy ended up offering me 10,000. I said, no. I said, I can't do it. I'm not only that. I said, I'm not going to get in bed with you. Supposing I tell your wife, right? And your case goes south. Now you're sitting in the shit house. You're going to call up the DEA and say, guess what? Ken Del Valle told my wife where 5 kilos were, and your wife is going to corroborate it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lose my livelihood, and I may end up doing jail time. I go, you don't have enough money to pay me for that. I said, you want me to tell your wife where the 5 kilos are? Give me $5 million.
Give me a plane.
Yeah, I know how to get a plane. So anyway, the guy. So sure enough, I come back to visit him about a week later, and he goes, "Gee, Mr. Del Valle, my wife went there. The 5 kilos were gone."
Oh man. Ooh.
Yeah. So I said, well, and at that time,
you really saw that coming, huh?
Well, but you see how a lawyer thinks?
Yeah.
It's not just, how we're doing this or how we're doing that. And I actually learned that in combat.
I was going to say, these sound like street smarts. This sounds like something you pick up growing up in a rough neighborhood.
No, I always lived in, when I went to, I grew up.
Well, where were you when you encountered the guy on the bus with the meat cleaver or the axe or whatever he had?
I was on the L riding home from law school.
And
this is a great.
We didn't finish the story. I don't even know the story. You told me. I've heard the first part of it.
All right.
So give me the story.
I always carried a 1911.
Right, you told me you carry a gun, and then I started laughing.
Or a Model 13 Smith & Wesson 357 mag. Those were my 2 carry guns. So after a while, I said, "Oh shit, these things are bulky." Blah blah blah. I got a Walther PP K 380.
Yeah.
So I'm carrying this 380, and when I got out of law school, I would stop in the bathroom, take it out of my briefcase, put it in my waistband or in my coat pocket, whatever. So now I'm riding the L. Right?
The L?
L, the elevated train.
Okay.
The subway.
Okay.
Commonly known as it's L.
There's no such thing in El Paso.
I know.
never heard of it.
It's the subway.
Okay.
But it goes up it goes from underground and it comes up and it's elevated.
Okay.
So they call it the L.
Gotcha.
There's 2 cars, 9:30 at night. I'm in the second car back. No, first car. We stop at a station. The door opens. And a guy that must have been about 6'2" or 6'3" and weighed all of 180 pounds, no shirt. Now, this is like November. The guy's got no shirt, Levi's boots, and he's holding a double-headed axe. down at his side.
Interesting.
And he just gets in and he's looking at everybody. And everybody, including yours truly, is looking out the window going,
don't make eye contact.
Yeah, I don't want to make contact with this son of a bitch. I don't want to. And I'm thinking, oh my God, all I got's a 380.
Yeah.
I said, I could have shot that son of a bitch in the eye and he would have still cleaved me in half. So anyway, he's literally walking up and down the aisle, holding the thing like this and looking at everybody. And I shit you not, nobody's making eye contact with him.
Yeah, who would do that?
Nobody with a half a fucking brain, right? So he goes in the next car. And I'm thinking, with my goddamn luck, and I'm wearing a 3-piece suit. Okay? Remember, at this point, I'm a semi-high level government employee, right? I'm wearing a 3-piece suit and a trench coat, wingtips, briefcase, coming home from law school, right?
Yeah.
And I go, with my luck, he's going to come back and decide I'm the one he's looking for, right? Because I'm wearing a suit or I got a nice trench coat on or whatever. So I say, shit, I'm getting off at the next station. So this is 9:30 at night, right? Maybe between 9:30 and 10 around that time. So, and remember, there's 2 cars. So the doors open, I step out of the first car. There's nobody in the station. And the guy steps out of the second car. So now it's going to be me and him on the L platform and nobody else around.
Oh my God.
I did a moonwalk, the best use of assholes and elbows you have ever seen in your life. I got myself back in there. I'm fucking jamming the doors, making sure they don't close. The door's shut. And the train went on. And I'm thinking, holy God, how does this shit happen in Chicago?
Right.
Raw boned white guy, just his eyes are blazing, veiny arms and shit, with a double fucking headed axe.
And no shirt.
And no shirt in fucking October or November. I forgot what it was, but and cold as shit outside.
Right.
So I go, fuck. The first thing I did when I got home, by the time I got home, my wife used to pick me up at the L station. I tell her, babe, oh my God. I'm acting like the world's biggest pussy here, right?
I don't think anyone can blame you. and that's you with a gun. I mean, a 380, but at least you had a gun. I'm assuming that nobody else was armed.
Yeah, but I was really pissed at myself.
Because you didn't do anything?
No. I was really pissed at myself for carrying a 380.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, had you had a 1911, I assume in 45.
I went back to my 1911 and my 357 Magnum.
Yeah.
From then on. It's just I never carried a holster.
So then, but nothing happened. There was
nothing happened.
So let me ask you this law question. In that scenario where he's on the bus or on the thing, whatever it's called, and he hasn't attacked anybody, he hasn't verbally threatened anybody, he's just walking around, but obviously it's a terrifying situation. Had you just decided, you know what, this guy could split my skull, let me just shoot him just to be safe, how do you think that would have played out?
I don't think I would have been on good legal grounds.
I mean, first of all, you were carrying illegally, so that's problem number one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had an FOI. Illinois has FOIs.
Which is what?
Firearm owner's identification.
Okay.
You need to get cleared by the Illinois Department of Public Service, whatever they call it, the state troopers. They issue you a license to purchase a firearm.
Yeah.
But there was no carry. There was nothing like that.
Is that still the case today? Do you know?
Yeah, I think people
you can still carry
FOIs,
in Illinois.
Oh, Illinois now has concealed carry.
Really?
Yeah, but they
even in Chicago.
Yeah, they had to go to court.
Interesting.
One of my sons is a lawyer, and he was really happy when they finally got concealed carry.
Oh, does he work out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a prosecutor for a while, and then he took a job with an agency, and now he's with a very prestigious law firm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they had that. Was that a recent change? because that's one of the things.
It's been a couple of years.
One of the things, whenever there's a gun debate, one of the things that people always point to, the pro-gun people always point to, is like, look at what happens in places where the citizens are unarmed, and they always point to Illinois and New York.
I got you. No, I agree,
California.
100%.
And so it sounds like maybe they're trying to change that a little bit and give people the right to carry.
Well, what was the big case? The Supreme Court case that found that, what was it, McDonald, that found that the Second Amendment is a personal right.
Okay.
It's like a personal right, like you can't be made into a slave.
Yeah.
Like search and seizure is a personal right.
Yep.
On the Fourth Amendment, your right to confront the witnesses, it's that kind of a right. So, but what's the limits on it? So Illinois had ignored that. And somebody finally took Illinois to, the state to court, federal court, and the federal court in Illinois, in Chicago, Northern District.
Could you just please pull this a little bit closer?
Okay.
To you? You could pull it towards you if you're
the Northern District of Illinois found that, you did have a right to carry. That the Second Amendment right didn't mean that you had to leave your gun at home.
Mm-hmm.
That your right of self-protection didn't end, or your right to bear arms didn't end when you left your house.
Yeah.
So,
but then, of course, there are situations, or there are things that people do to where they lose their rights: their right to vote, their right to carry, their right to.
You lose 4 rights. You lose your right to vote, your right to carry, your right to serve in a jury, and your right to run for public office.
Yes.
But some of those different states have different ways of giving you those rights back. For example, the state of Colorado, it could be a convicted murder, and 5 years after you're done with your sentence, those 4 rights are returned to you by operation of law. New Mexico, you can go to a judge and get your right to possess a firearm back. You also automatically get your right to vote back. You also get your right to serve on a jury, but you have to petition the governor for your right to run for public office. So if you get caught, a felon in possession of a firearm, if you haven't complied with those 4 things, the state may not get you, but the feds will.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard somebody talk about that one time. I'm curious what you think that like, yes, okay, you committed a crime and you went to jail and you paid the price for that crime, but now you're out and you haven't committed any crimes for X amount of time, whatever that amount, 3 years, 5 years. Like you said, in Colorado, it's 5 years. Why would you not regain your rights to vote or to run for office or to do any of those things? Now, I think the only argument there is that if you've committed a violent offense like murder, then to give you back the right to carry is I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I mean, look, you can't give your right to possess a firearm and not a right to carry,
or even to possess a firearm. Period. So, like when I worked at the gun shop, people would come in and you want to buy a firearm, you got to fill out a form, and one of the boxes says, "Have you ever been convicted of a violent offense?" And if they check yes to that box, it's an automatic DQ.
Correct.
Yeah. And there are things that people can do. I'm not too sure about this. Maybe you can provide some insight. There are things that people can do where they can go get whatever crime they were guilty of. They can get those records sealed or something, or expunged, and then they don't have to answer yes to that question because it's basically been removed.
No, not that I know.
No? Okay.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm not sure. About that
expungement is a funny thing.
Okay.
You can't expunge a conviction. You can have a letter of non-disclosure, all right, or something to that effect.
Okay.
Where it won't be disclosed, and it's kind of an onerous process. There's some lawyers that do it for a minimal fee, like $1,500, because they're set up to do that. But that doesn't mean you can own the firearm, or possess or carry. Do you see what I'm saying? You still don't get to pass the 4473 form test.
Yeah.
It's that's the same thing with domestic violence. If you have a domestic violence, or if you're subject to an order of protection. That
was another disqualifier from purchasing firearms.
And a lot of anti-gun people don't know about all that. You know that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they think you just walk into a gun store and we just say, "Here you go, get whatever you want."
One of the
And
things.
I mean, in 5 years of the gun shop, there weren't too many instances of me turning away people. There were probably like 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, we are running checks, and they have to fill out a form, and we do send a background check, which goes to the FBI, and they send us a response, and they say either yes, this person can buy a gun, or not. One time we had an El Paso detective, get denied. They had a warrant for I think it was a parking citation that they didn't take care of, and it had become a warrant.
They have an outstanding warrant.
Yeah, and then when we ran the background check, they were denied, and she was really embarrassed. She's a detective, and it was hilarious. So I mean, yeah, even a detective can be denied buying a firearm if they have an outstanding warrant or something like that. It all comes up in the background check.
Yeah, it does. You know, and a lot of anti-gun people don't realize that.
Right.
You know, one of the things you mentioned is how surprised people are that they can't walk out with a firearm.
Yeah.
You know, there's been so many anti-gun people who have recently, due to the social political situation, decided to purchase a firearm. They're having a difficult time coming to terms with, well, I can't have it right now. No.
Oh, yeah.
They have to come back 7 days. And guess what? Maybe 15, because so many people are buying firearms now.
Yep.
You know, and it's a sense of security. I like the fact that firearms are becoming a feel-good, feel-secure thing.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a couple of loopholes that I think are problematic. And one of them, I've heard many people talk about, and frankly, I agree with it. And the other one, almost nobody talks about. I've never heard anybody talk about it actually in a political debate or anything on a platform like that, on a TV or something like that. Nobody's ever talked about it. But working at the gun shop, I noticed it, and that loophole's been closed. I'll tell you what it is. If you have a license to carry, as you know, they don't run the background check when you go to buy a gun in Texas. You fill out the form, you put in your license to carry information, and then you walk out with the firearm.
Unfortunately, so
here's the thing.
I've made too many impulse buys.
Yeah, it's good for us as salespeople. So, but here's the thing: if you have committed a crime, it takes a little while for what is it, the DPS? Yeah, to send you a letter in the mail to say you've got to turn in your license because you're suspected to be guilty of whatever.
Right.
And you still have your license. So during that time, you can still go buy guns. Because you're going to go to the gun shop, they're not going to do a check. Yeah. Now, there's a new thing that started about probably a year ago, where when you go to a gun shop and you have a license to carry, they still put in the ID number into this website, and it lets you know if the license to carry is still okay to be used in lieu of a background check or not. So they closed that loophole, and I think that's fantastic.
I agree.
I thought that was great. It was an extra step for me, when I was working at the gun store, and for the other people working there. It was an extra thing that we had to do, but nobody complained about it. In fact, everybody was happy. Everybody was like, yeah, great. They should have been doing this all along. The other problem, though, the one area that hasn't been closed is gun shows, and where people just go, and you could just, I've been to a gun show. And
personal gun sales.
You could just go and buy something cash and walk out. And, it's all good.
Well, you can't buy it from an FFL. You always have to.
Some vendors look the other way. It depends on where they acquired it from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but look, getting a gun is the easiest thing in the world. You can, I remember one of the times I got wounded, I ended up in Yokosuka, Japan, in the hospital, naval hospital there, and as soon as I became ambulatory, I was up and walking about. I made it to the EM club, and I wanted to go to Kyoto because I'd studied sword as a kid, and I want to go to Kyoto. And there were a couple of iaido.
Studied sword?
Sword, Japanese sword. Okay. Iaido, kendo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to go to Kyoto and see, So this is Japan, where there are no fucking guns, supposedly, right? But I don't want to. I'm paranoid. I'm from Vietnam. Right? I'm not going to be traveling around Japan. Maybe I read too many Yakuza stories or something stupid, but I wanted a firearm.
Yeah.
So I'm at the EM club, and I talked to a Japanese bartender working at the EM club in Japan, in Yokosuka, Japan, right? And I ask, I go, hey, you know where I can get a gun? He goes, yeah, $100. Come back tomorrow night.
do you get to pick what kind of gun?
No. He asked me, what do you want? I said, little, small revolver. So I should have kept the goddamn gun because it was a Colt's Chief Special.
Ooh.
Yeah, they don't make, that's almost a collector's item now.
Yeah.
But anyway, check this out. So, I got 12 rounds, little 6-shooter with 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Pocket gun. I'm up and down, Japan. I go to Kyoto. And I actually stayed at the Iaido school, at the sword school, for about 3 or 4 days. I took a little bit of R&R before I went back to Nam. Well, actually, I got myself assigned to the ward. I'm a corpsman, right?
Okay.
I'm a patient at a naval hospital. The minute I'm ambulatory, I'm passing out meds and emptying bedpans.
Okay.
Right. So I'm trying to get a slot in there, Shit, I want to stay in Japan. Yeah. I'm a martial artist. I mean, this is like, initially, the only reason I wanted to go to college was because I wanted to study at Sophia University in Japan and continue my martial arts study while there.
Interesting. Wow, you were really serious about it.
Oh yeah, no, I was. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were you into Japanese women too? Was that part of the reason?
I was into any women. Okay. They didn't have to be Japanese. Yeah, but they were a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So I end up in Kyoto. Now I'm at the sword school, and the guy's letting me in. He's got a space for students that show up, I'm living in, I got a little cot. I'm sleeping there. I'm doing okay. I'm doing kendo a couple of hours, in Iaido. I'm learning the Iaido forms, the classical Iaido forms and engaging in, more advanced sword practice than you could get in the States at that time. And the guy sees my gun. Well, I swapped him. I took a sword that back then was worth about $1,200 for a $100 gun. And I went back. I went back and I shipped it to myself in the U.S.
Nice. I assume you still have it.
God, I have so many.
Oh, I hope you still have it. That'd be such a cool piece.
No, I've got better swords.
Okay.
I've collected them over the years.
All right.
And I don't buy American-made swords. Most of the swords I own are World War II trophies that were brought back. So I have a substantial, beautiful collection. I have a sword in the trunk of my car. I want to find some guy cutting people up with a machete so I can do a number on them with my sword.
You never heard the saying, take your guns to a knife fight?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Why would you take a sword if they have a machete?
Draw
your sig.
Oh, no, man. I wouldn't pass that up. A guy with a machete doing general harm. Shit. Give me my sword.
All right.
I couldn't pass up a real sword fight.
Yeah.
It's just, I'd regret it for the rest of my life I have.
Yeah.
At age 73.
You really want to have a sword fight.
Yeah. I also have a bowgun. Let me tell you something about deadly force. Unless you are confronted with deadly force immediately, it should never be your first option.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in pepper spray. If you pepper spray a guy and he's still coming at you, then you can do a number on him.
Yeah.
But it looks awfully good in front of a jury if you're making, peaceful gestures.
You're trying non-lethal approaches first.
And then, you pepper spray him.
All right.
I have a pepper spray canister hanging from my directional lever in my vehicle.
Yeah.
If I get out, I'm going to a movies, I'm going to a store, I'm going to be somewhere. That's my first option. Always do that.
Yeah.
Not only that, I was recently in a situation where I could have killed a guy, in a home invasion. He invaded our home, him and another guy. And I walk in and I find him shoving my wife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is at a property that I own somewhere. And some kids we put it on Airbnb, and my wife, the first time we rented it out, turns out to be a kid's teenage party. Cops came, emptied it out. But we were back cleaning up. I left for a little bit. I come back. These two guys are thugging up my wife, trying to get their speakers and other radio and other music equipment they left.
What morons.
Yeah. And I pulled on the guy. I made the guy by the door. I put him down. Then the other kid starts coming at me. Some 17, 18-year-old knucklehead. I was carrying a 357 SIG, and I'm thinking, I'm going to shoot this kid. Whatever I hit's going to hit his elbow, come out of his asshole.
Right.
That's
a serious round.
Yeah, that is a serious round. But here's the deal. I'm looking at this kid coming at me, and I'm going, no, I'm not going to shoot some dumb fucking kid.
Right.
I'm thinking, I don't want to see his mother crying at his funeral.
Yep.
So just because you have a firearm or the means of self-protection doesn't mean that you have to exercise the right. You have to use discretion and compassion.
Yes.
And compassion, some poor dumbass kid, I'm going to put a bullet in him.
Yep.
Fuck him up, maybe kill him.
Right.
Fuck up his family.
The idiot hasn't even thought about the consequences of what he's doing.
Correct. So I get him out of the house. And here's the funny part. I finally get him out of the house. We call the cops back again. And now some more guys show up and they want to get in the house. So the two guys I pulled the gun on said, oh, this guy's serious. Don't. And here's another knucklehead. I'm coming in. Go ahead, shoot me.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, shit.
Wow.
I'm going, no, you're not coming in. Stand the sidewalk, asshole.
Yeah, these kids, I don't know. These kids watch too many movies. They watch too many shows. I don't understand. What would make a kid? Yeah, that's just so stupid. I can't even.
I'm going to pose a question to you. If I told you you have two choices, you're going to sit on that chair and I'm going to slap the shit out of you and maybe punch you a couple of times for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So you got to sit there and take it.
Okay.
The other alternative is you're going to spend $50,000 and maybe go to jail for 30 years. Which one would you take?
I'd take the slapping.
As any reasonable person would.
Yeah.
So when you're confronted in a self-defense situation, you have to have a sense of measure and a sense of where's this going? Is my ego that important?
So did you end up smacking the shit out of the kid, or like what happened?
Yeah. Oh, not the guy outside. The guy I had to put down. I mean, I actually had to just, I had my foot on the back of the guy's neck that I took down by the doorway and had him, and this guy's coming at me, coming across the living room. And I go, motherfucker, you better, lay the fuck down.
Yeah.
And then I said, I'm going to shoot your friend first, then I'm going to go to you. And then this guy's begging him, lay down, I don't want to get shot, right?
He scared the
little
crap out of the
psychology,
guy.
right?
Of course.
Guess what? I got this guy on my side
really
now.
Clever.
He doesn't want to get shot.
Yeah,
right?
that's really clever.
Well, been in a couple of gunfights. It helps, right?
Yeah.
So this guy, finally lays down, and he's laying down with his hands outstretched. He's still motherfucking me.
Jesus.
So
well, I was in
I put the boot to him a little bit.
Okay. I was in a situation just like that, but without guns, when I worked as a bouncer about 7 years ago. I walk this guy outside. I say, hey man, you're acting up. You're really drunk. You got to leave. It's all good. Just go party somewhere else. I never touch anybody unless they attack me. And I say, let's go outside. He goes outside and then he comes out, he walks about 20 feet away from me. Then he decides he wants to act tough. Now all of a sudden he wants to fight. He starts walking back towards me and he's, I don't know, cursing at me in Spanish. I don't know what he's saying. I kept telling him, maybe he didn't understand what I was telling him. I don't know. I assume he spoke English, but I don't speak Spanish. So I kept telling him, like, you just don't get any closer. Don't get any closer. He's putting his hands up. He's coming towards me. He gets close enough. I head kick him. He falls to the ground. I put him in a Kimura. So I had his arm, right? So I have my shin on his face and I have his arm in a Kimura. And the other bouncers had taken his friends out through the other door. So they see me with their friend on the floor. They start walking towards me, and I looked at them and I said, "Look, if you get any closer, I'm going to rip his shoulder out, and then I'm going to go do the same thing to you." So it was the same thing. It was the same thing as you told the guy, "I'm going to shoot your friend, and then I'm going to shoot you."
I've done that. I've done that. One time in a barracks fight, you know, I was brand new to the barracks, and the guy had tied the oscillating fan so it only hit his bunk, and I cut it. You know, I got up and I cut it with a knife. You know, this is like in Florida, right? Yeah. This is in Key West at the UDT school there.
Hot as hell, yeah.
Yeah, you know. So I cut the thing, right? And all of a sudden he comes, and all of a sudden all these friends come at me. I grab this guy and put him in a chokehold.
Yeah.
You know, go, hey, I'm gonna fucking break his neck. You know, all you guys back up. It's great. Listen, wherever you're in a fight and you can take a hostage,
yeah,
it's great. Or you can threaten somebody. I've actually been in situations where guys go, first one I'm going to shoot is your kid. You want to go there? Okay, no. You know.
Yeah, because some people might.
The first one I'm going to kick or shoot or cut is going to be your wife.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because then he's gonna get his ass kicked and he's gonna get a divorce. That's gonna be a problem.
You know,
and his wife is gonna come to you to represent him, to represent her.
Yeah. I can honestly say this. I have never picked a fight in my life.
Yeah.
I have never.
I don't think I have either. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, but yeah.
Never. Well,
I've always said that if I'm gonna fight, it's gonna be in a cage and I'm gonna get paid for it. And it's going to be on the internet and I'm going to get paid for it. You know, why would I just fight in the streets?
I was at a bar in Chicago and a guy started challenging me. And I said, I'll tell you what, yeah, man. I said, look, I'm on a nice business. Put $500 on the bar. I'll put $500 on the bar.
Yeah.
And whoever wins the fight takes the money.
I like it.
The guy goes, well, you think? I go, no, man.
It's got to be worth my time. I might tear my suit.
I said, I have to have a reason to kick your ass, you know, and risk, you know, getting my Ralph Lauren all tore up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, get my $1,500 suit torn up. Guess what? You know, I'm not.
Are they that much? Ralph Lauren suits?
No,
okay.
I was exaggerating.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I was just trying to.
I got you.
The guy.
I was just thinking because I'm into suits.
Another time in Mexico City, man. This guy's looking at me in a bar, and he comes over. I get off the bar stool and I start limping.
Okay.
I go, yeah, picking a guy, man. I just had my leg amputated. I'm wearing I'm with all my buddies, right? I'm with all my I'm with a bunch of some of the roughest guys in the world. Everybody's armed to the fucking teeth.
Yeah.
We're all ex-veterans working down there, doing work for several agencies, American agencies in Latin America. We're a rough crew, right?
Yeah.
But I'm fucking with this guy. I end up pushing him. Go ahead, punch me. You know, and I got this limp, dragging my leg behind me. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know. Wait. Yeah, my mother just died of cancer. I said, my mother just died of cancer. I want to be punished. I want to feel the pain. You know, I'm fucking crying. I'm fucking spittle and shit. You know? Oh, my buddy's going, what the fuck? Right? Another time in Chicago, one fast move, the guy would have been knocked out, right?
Yeah.
Another time, but the guy ended up apologizing and leaving the bar.
Yeah, that was so much better. That was more entertaining. You didn't have to risk going to jail.
Oh, no, we weren't going to jail.
Okay, well.
But anyway, yeah, we were the jail. So, but anyway, another time I'm in a bar in Mexico City, in Chicago, a Mexican bar. I'm the only guy, raunchy fucking bar, right? And I'm wearing a suit, right? I was there with a sheriff, an undersheriff, gigantic guy, weighed 500 pounds, 6'8", you know, he eventually died from his condition. But we're there, and this guy loved mariachi music, so that's why I went there. This guy wearing a flat-brimmed hat, you know, those old shirt collar, those old-fashioned shirt without a collar and
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
older guy. Yeah, must have been about 10, 15 years older than me back then. He's looking at me. He's looking at me. He says, give me the real evil eye. I'm just ignoring it, but I got him out of the sight of him. Of course, I'm packing.
Sure.
Right? So I managed to get a badge. So I could pack. I could, during a lot of times I packed legally.
You managed to get a badge.
I had a badge. That's enough. That's, I was part of a law enforcement body in Chicago.
Okay. This sounds like something you don't want me to ask about. Because I managed to get a badge.
No, legitimately. It was under my name. I had the credentials. I had everything.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I had to go to an academy. I had to go to classes. I had to buy the uniform. But I got to carry.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Legally.
For once.
Huh?
For once.
Well, I carried legally.
No, I'm kidding.
Unofficially.
I'm kidding.
I carried legally ever since, because I was a stringer, what they call, but I was a government employee.
Uh-huh.
I was a freelancer / government employee. Then when I graduated from law school, when I no longer had that status, I managed to, I'll tell you how it happened. I became a holiday deputy.
Okay. A holiday deputy?
Yeah, they call it deputy sheriff.
Okay.
So I had a badge. I actually went to the academy, graduated from the academy.
All right.
And I had to serve like once a month for a couple of hours, doing some sheriff stuff.
Okay.
But so I was legal. By that, once I became a lawyer, I made sure I was legal.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I went to another state. I couldn't, I always carried.
Yeah. I
knew there was somewhat of a risk, but having been in the kind of business that I was in, I kind of always had to look over my back.
Sure.
So, and I didn't want to get caught with, my pants down without a gun.
Sure.
So anyway, so this guy's looking at me. He's looking at me. Well, he walks up. He gets in my face, and I'm admiring this guy's outfit. He's got a vest, kind of like a dark tannish suit, crisp as shit. Looks right at me. Goes, "I've killed 3 people."
Okay.
That's the
first thing he told you?
Yeah. He just gets in my face. I mean, like right here.
Yeah.
I killed 3 people. Wait a minute. I get my card. Well, next time you kill the next one, give me a call. I'm a lawyer. I'll defend you.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't. The guy became my instant friend.
Hilarious.
The guy became my instant friend.
Yeah.
That's how I handled that situation. I couldn't get rid of the son of a bitch. He started coming to my office and hanging out. He'd bring me bottles of tequila. He just liked me, Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I wanted to ask you about something else too. You posted about one time, and being that you're a veteran, I really want to hear your opinion on this. Something you posted something about the athletes who were kneeling during the national anthem.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I
couldn't give a shit.
Okay, just
you want to kneel.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. Communist countries make people pledge. Communist countries require people to toe a certain line. You want to stand. You want to kneel. You want to sit. I always used to stand. And then all of a sudden it was de rigueur. You were an asshole if you didn't. Well, fuck you. Now I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
Just because you say it now has. Well,
see that's okay. That's a great point, because that's my whole thing. Is like now it's stigmatized. Now you're a bad guy. Now you're supposed to.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing that just had a light shined on it, and I never knew what to make of it. And I've got friends who, like you, are veterans or active even, and police officers, and even just Americans, just patriots. And some of them, like you, they say, well, I don't care if you stand or kneel. And some people even say that kneeling is a sign of respect. People kneel in church. People kneel when they pray. People kneel in front of the whatever it was back in the day when you would get knighted, you would kneel and they would knight you. And so people are like, well, I don't understand why this is disrespectful. Like if the guy started breakdancing or doing something, I don't know, jerking off during the national anthem.
I couldn't care less if you scratch your balls during the national anthem. Big fucking deal. You want to scratch your balls? Scratch your balls. What the fuck? I mean, what business is it of mine what the fuck you do? I mean, that's the ultimate bottom.
Okay.
Why do I have to expect certain behavior from you?
Yeah.
You don't.
Well, because you're not sponsoring people, I suppose. You're not Nike and you're not paying these people millions of dollars.
So what if I'm Nike and
I know, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So what? So what if I'm paying you millions of dollars?
But they've got to protect their brand. Because
now you're talking about the commercialization.
Well, because people
patriotic manifestations.
Yep.
Yep. And if that's what you want to do, well, that's what you want to do. Yep. If I'm getting $1 million from Nike, I'll stand on my fucking head if they want me to do that.
That's like, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's so true.
I'd be even balder, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
Am I right?
That's so logical.
Right. But some guys say, no, you're disrespecting the flag. Fuck you and disrespecting the flag.
Right.
Right.
Well, one time somebody mentioned something to me about I had an American flag hanging somewhere in my living room. I don't know where, in my garage. And I had taken a picture and you could see the flag behind me. And somebody mentioned like, oh, well, the stars should be flipped the other way because the way you're doing it right now is disrespectful. And I'm like,
fuck you, mind your own business.
I put up the American flag in my house.
No. Wait. None of your fucking business.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You want to pay my rent? You want to wait. You want to pay my rent? You want to pay my mortgage?
Yeah.
You want to put clothes on my back and food on my table? Yeah. Maybe I'll start giving a shit what you think about me.
Yeah.
How I fly the flag.
Yeah. Right. But the point is it's up, and it's like which direction.
No, but the point is it's nobody's fucking business.
Yeah.
Mind your own fucking business.
People have nothing better to do.
Not only do you not mind your business, but you're trying to tell me how to mind my own.
That's right.
Guess what? Fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
Yeah, I agree.
And guess what? I'm 73 years old. I can still back that up.
Yeah. Simple as that.
Yeah. Nobody's business how you react to the flag. And it becomes virtue signaling.
Big time.
Look at me. I'm a patriot. I put my hand over my heart.
Big time.
I cry, when they sing God Bless America. Okay, cool. That's you. It doesn't have to be me.
Yeah.
I'm 73 years old. Somebody invades this country, I'll be on the front lines.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah, without a doubt.
No, I'm sure you would.
And all my kin and people behind me.
Yeah.
But you telling me I got to stand for this or sit for that,
Yeah.
or pick my nose, or put my hand over my heart.
Yeah.
It's all the same to me.
I just don't understand. I mean, I just don't get what the difference is between standing or kneeling. I really don't. That's my whole point. I'm not telling people what to agree with, what to disagree with. I just don't understand what the difference is. Like, I just want someone to explain to me what the difference is. It's like, the comedian George Carlin.
Yeah.
So he had a bit about that where, about swearing in court. He'd say, when you're in court, they tell you put your left hand on the Bible, put the right hand up. He's like, does God really give a fuck which hand you put up or which one you put down? Does God really care about these details? Is your testimony if you do it the other way around?
Nowadays they go, do you promise? Raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell me the truth? They go, yes. You're now under oath. You have to understand that if you lie to me, you could be charged with the crime of perjury, and anything you say could be used against you in a trial, that kind of charge. Yeah. But they've heard you never see you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
So help you God. All that stuff's gone by the wayside.
Too many atheists.
Yeah.
What good is swearing on the Bible? And I've always wondered if let's say somebody's Muslim, do they bring him a Quran to swear on?
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if it's not your religion, you'll say anything. Who cares? Right?
I'm laughing about something that just.
Well,
I got a buddy tried doing a jury. This is like about 3 months after 9/11, doing a fucking jury over it. And this client, a black kid, tall black kid, drug case. Right? he's got the Muslim outfit, the little white.
Yeah.
Kafia.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Kafia,
right. Yeah. He's got that. He's got the white robe, and
it's actually those robes are super comfortable.
I know they are.
You're practically walking around naked. It's great.
Yeah, wait. Yeah. I got a bathrobe too. So this kid, he's outside of his lawyer. He's outside of the courtroom with his lawyer. They're talking. His lawyer's a good buddy of mine. And I look at this lawyer. I go, "Oh, I see. Suicide by jury." Huh? And the kid got all offended. And he goes, "Fuck you, kid." And I termed that. That's where I termed that phrase, suicide by jury. I got you a deal. You're going to do 2 years. If the jury finds you guilty, you're going to do 15. Yeah. I'm on a jury trial. Okay, suicide by jury. It's simple. That kid got, it's 3 months after 9/11.
Yeah.
And it's Las Cruces, New Mexico. Black kid.
Oh my God.
He's not from around here. He got caught transporting weed and what other checkpoints, or whatever, weed, coke, whatever, heroin, and now he's in front of a New Mexico jury wearing a Muslim outfit. I'm going, oh, fuck.
Was he Middle Eastern or?
No, an American dude.
Oh, that's interesting that he would wear that.
Yeah,
suicide. I've worn it.
Suicide by jury.
I've worn that attire a couple of times in my life because I grew up in Dubai. I was born and raised in Dubai. I've worn it a couple of times. That's why I know it's really comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's terrible if you get in a fight. Those guys, what they wear, they hardly ever wear shoes. They wear slippers.
Right.
They just wear slippers and what is it called? Deshdeshi. And a kafia and the black thing, the ring that they put on their head to hold it down. It's called dagal. And that's what they wear. But that thing's good for getting in fights. You see them when they get in fights, they take it off, they start whipping each other with it. It's really, I don't know what it's made of, but it's like a whip. It's worse, so much worse than a belt. So they start whipping each other with it when they get in fights. It's hilarious, but they can't really run or kick or anything because of what they're wearing. So it's not very, I always think about that. I think about what I'm wearing. Like, what if, we don't have natural disasters in El Paso, but what if I got to run for whatever reason?
Yeah,
I'm wearing flip-flops or slippers.
Oh, man, I had a situation.
Or what if I have to kick somebody?
I had a situation in the Philippines. With Muslims, that they were wearing flip-flops. And I got the best of them because they were wearing flip-flops.
I'm sure. Yeah. You have, it's a terrible disadvantage.
Yeah.
You can't plant your foot firmly on the ground to punch or kick. Or it's easy for you to trip or roll an ankle. Or if you're trying to move sideways or back, you could roll an ankle and fall. It's just it's not tactical attire at all.
Well, how much.
But those guys never get in fights in the UAE. It's so rare. And if they get in a fight, it's like a bunch of friends who got mad because, I don't know, they got mad over something stupid, like a friendly fight, not a real beatdown, just a friendly fight.
We're gonna push each other and maybe beat on each other a little bit, shake hands, and
something like that. It's so safe over
like we used to do in grammar school and high school in my day.
High school fisticuffs.
Which are always healthy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they build character.
Well, not only that, it teaches it lets a young man set his place.
Yes.
And the hierarchy.
A pecking order. Yeah. Very important.
And not only, I was thinking about the martial arts today. One of the great things about fighting in sports context is that they teach you that getting hit isn't the end of the world.
Right.
When you're in the middle of the maelstrom of violence.
Sure.
And guys are kicking your ass, you're taking punches and shit, If you can keep your head about you and think logically and reasonably to where you want to go. One time I was in Colombia. I was at a nightclub, right? This guy leans over.
Colombia, the country.
Yeah, Colombia, Bogota.
Okay. Yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
And I'm in a nightclub with some chick, right? And that she used to know the guy, the girl I was with. used to know the guy, So, he comes over and he leans over the table and he pulls his coat out to the side and he's wearing a shoulder holster. I still got the gun, by the way, And
you took his gun?
Yeah, and he's got a Smith and Wesson, right? He's got a Smith and Wesson. I still have it. I'll show it to you one day. And he goes, "Hey, man." I go, "Thank you." And I grab the gun, right? And the guy leans back, and all of a sudden, like 2 tables of guys get up.
Oh shit!
And I go, "Oh fuck, I'm in deep shit."
Yeah.
Right? So I have a loaded gun in my hand. I'm not going to use it. My job is to get that gun unloaded as quickly as possible. For 2 reasons. Number 1, if they get a hold of it, they're going to shoot me with it. Number 2, I need it as a weapon because now there's a whole bunch of them. So I'm trying to open the cylinder.
Yeah.
And when I'm opening the cylinder, I'm getting punched by about 5 or 6 guys. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh shit, this is really a test of whether or not I can take a punch. I'm actually having the thought,
What happened to 1, 2, 3 shoot?
Yeah.
What happened to take 3 hits and shoot?
No, I'll tell you an interesting thing. As I was walking toward that nightclub, remember, this is Colombia.
Well, how'd you get out of that situation?
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
I had seen soldiers guarding a bank, and they had AFLs.
Yeah.
What
AFL?
FL.
FAL. FAL. Yeah.
Yeah. FAL.
Yeah.
They had.
That's a
308.
Is it a 308 or a 30?
308,
I think, right?
308.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of them over the years.
Yeah.
Shit guns. I don't really like them.
Right.
But anyway, and I go, if they hear shots, they're going to come here. And I'm going to end up in a Colombian shithouse, in a Bogota shithouse. And I don't know who these guys are. I don't know who they're related to. I don't know if they got people. I don't know if they're part of a cartel. All I know is I'm in a fight with a bunch of dudes, and they're all dressed nicely. This was a high-end place, So I got, what a junior means in Latin America? Es un junior. When you say he's a junior, that means his father's something important.
Oh, okay.
Or a well-to-do guy.
Okay.
Yeah. They all drive Mustangs.
Okay.
So
I guess that's a big deal over there.
Yeah, back then it was.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm trying to get this gun empty, and I'm taking hits like a motherfucker, man. I shit you not. I must have been punched and kicked
a lot
before, and they're grabbing my arms and trying to pull me, and guys are going for the gun. I'm wrestling for the fucking gun. I'm doing this. I finally get the cylinder open, and I get the ejector pushed. I got the rounds on the floor. Then you're never supposed to do that, right? But I snap it closed, right? And then I start hitting guys with it.
And nobody else had a gun?
Nobody else had. If they did, they didn't pull it.
Oh, man.
If they did,
well, had you known that, it'd have been probably easier to shoot 6 of them.
No.
And then fight the rest.
No, I wasn't going to. I don't know. I'm not going to start shooting guys.
Yeah.
What I should have done is I should have said, "Yes, sir, you're a tough guy. Would you join us for a drink?
Right,
I understand you two know each other, but I got to be a fucking wise ass and show off for the babe."
It's always
yeah. So I reached for the guy's gun. She's acting like she's scared of him. I go, "Don't be scared of him." When he pulls his thing open and shows the gun, now I got to show off for the babe.
Yeah.
So I reached for the fucking gun. Now I'm thinking, what the fuck did I just do?
Behind every shitty situation that a man gets himself into is a woman.
No, I can get myself in shitty situations without a woman. I have a knack. I have a knack.
Yeah,
I have a knack.
Yeah, but a lot of the dumb stuff that men do, oftentimes it's girl related somehow. I mean, I at least most of the stuff that I saw when I was a bouncer, it was always some idiot.
Well, because you're dealing with young people.
Trying to hit on a girl.
Yeah, you're dealing with young people.
This guy went and talked to that guy's girlfriend, and now he's mad about it. And that guy's girlfriend is with the other guy, and he wants to go fight the guy. And there's always a girl somewhere in the middle of it.
I was once.
And that's not the girl's fault. That's definitely the guy's fault. That's our fault. I'm not blaming women.
I was once in a hillbilly bar in Wilson Avenue in Chicago with an old hillbilly preacher by the name of Iberius Hackard.
Jesus. Iberius.
Oh, this guy was wonderful.
That's a name.
Yeah, Iberius Hackard. Big old, about 6'3", with a couple of 280, fat guy.
Yeah.
Always wore all coveralls. But he was a legitimate preacher. He's a reverend. He had gone to divinity school. And we're in there, we're having a drink. We were involved in some community affairs thing together, And and a fight broke out over a woman.
Of course.
And Iberius, everybody knew Iberius Hackard. I couldn't have gone into that bar by myself. But I was with Iberius, so I was okay. People look at him, they look at me. They look at me, they look at him. Nobody's going to get up and bother me. Otherwise, short haircut, comb to the side, button-down shirt, looked like a yuppie, penny loafers type, right? So anyway, we're doing great. We're having some beer or something like that. And that's the only bar I've ever been in where they sold illegal alcohol. Do you want legal or do you want illegal? Do you want homemade, home brew, or do you want name brand? So anyway,
interesting.
Yeah. So anyway,
I have some homebrewed stuff.
Yeah. So anyway,
brought it here from Lebanon.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I'll show you right now. Yeah.
And we'll have to break it out one of these days. But anyway, check this out. So these two guys start fighting, and he pulls him. He literally pulled him apart, and he's holding him like this.
Yeah.
Says, "You guys don't have to fight over pussy." That's exactly what he said. And he turns to one guy, he goes, "It ain't like pie that once you eat it, it's all gone. There's always some for everybody." That was everybody's reaction, But I said, those are some of the wisest words I've ever heard.
That's very wise.
You don't have to fight
it's
over
still going to
pussy.
be there.
Not like pie that if you eat it, it's all gone. There's always something left for everybody. I never forgot that.
So this was the pastor, or what was he?
Yeah, he was a reverend.
He was a reverend.
Reverend Iberius Hackard. I lost track of him. He eventually passed away.
Oh, that's
he was about 30 years older than I am.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
if he was alive now, he'd be a centurion. Is that what is that what it's called?
Centurion. Just a wonderful man. Very educated, really down to earth guy. Really understood his community. The guy could have been an anthropologist or sociologist, among the Appalachian community. There's a big Appalachian community in Chicago, back then it was around the Wilson and Broadway area. Just white Southerners, who are up there. I mean, rebel flag guys, It's an interesting experience hanging around there.
Now, you recently had surgery, right?
Yeah, I had a double laminectomy on July the 21st.
It's going to sound so ignorant. I don't know what that is.
That's where they fuse your back.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
From L4 to L5 and from L5 to S1.
Why'd you do that?
Because I couldn't walk upstairs anymore. They have fast ropes. You've seen that shit, on TV where they fast rope out of helicopters.
Yeah.
We didn't have fast ropes. You jump out of the chopper.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. Combat drops.
Yeah.
A lot of people have knee problems and lower back problems from combat drops.
Well, I have two replaced hips.
It's probably had something to do with it. With all your gear on too. So you're
no. You throw your gear on.
Okay.
It just don't land on it.
Okay.
You throw everything out but your rifle, and when you jump with your rifle, the reason you have your rifle is because you can roll over and use the buttstock to break your fall.
Okay.
That's how you're supposed to do it. And we used to have, when I first got there, we had the M14s, with wooden buttstocks, and they were held up good. So the same thing when we got the M16s. But anyway, a lot of those jumps, then all those years of karate,
Yeah.
And
well, I don't know how much. I feel like stand-up arts, striking arts, are more forgiving of lower backs than jujitsu. Like,
Oh, I agree with you.
Jiu-jitsu for me is probably the toughest thing that I do for my lower back, because especially in my first few years of training, because I played guard a lot. So I was always on my back. I don't know if you know, if you're familiar with jiu-jitsu. So guard is when you're on your back. And if you have a wrestler or somebody who's good at stacking, they're essentially bringing your knees up to your shoulders. And I had the flexibility to do it, basically. And I had the flexibility to do it, but it took me a while to think about it. It's like, after all these years of playing guard, my lower back is constantly bent with a lot of pressure on the discs. And so, but what I use to treat that, because that's the big problem with lower backs, is compression. Whether you're lifting weights or you're doing sports, or you're just getting older, whatever it is, there's always compression on the spine. I have a machine that I'll show you right now here in my gym. It's called the reverse hyper.
Oh yeah.
Not an inversion table where you hang upside down. This is actually an active release device that releases your lower back so you hook your feet, you lay face down on it like a table, and then your feet are just dangling, and you hook your feet to the weight at the bottom. The weight's on a pendulum, and you start swinging it. And on the upswing, you're squeezing your spinal erectors, glutes, hamstrings. And so you're doing a concentric rep. You're raising a weight. And then on the downswing, it's pulling everything apart. It's decompressing the spine.
Well,
now I don't know if you should be using that after you had your spine fused, but
I wouldn't risk it.
But it's man, I wish I'd have known you had those issues. I would have just liked for you to try it before you had surgery and see if it would have helped.
I had fractures. I had fractures, discs, ruptures. I mean, my lower back was a clusterfuck.
Okay.
And earlier this year, I was going up the stairs in my house. And in about a period of 3 months, my leg gave out twice. My left leg. It's just
nerves are just compressed.
No. I just you put pressure on your foot to go up.
Nothing happens.
Nothing. I couldn't raise myself.
Jeez.
I couldn't raise myself. I had to climb stairs those times that it happened to me. Like the old fart that I am now. You go up on your right and you bring up your left. You go up on your right, bring up your left. I go, holy shit, time to get this fixed. I got bad knees too. I need 2 new knees.
I hope you had a good surgeon. If you need physical therapy, which you probably do, I want to make a recommendation and just put the word out for my buddy, because he's really, really amazing. Mountain Man Physical Therapy, Dr. Sander Schiller.
Oh, I've heard of him.
He's great. He's really great. He's helped me. I've had some pretty significant issues over the years. The worst one was my neck. Again, from years of jiu-jitsu, getting punched. Your head's always doing this. You're getting punched and kicked. And then jiu-jitsu, where you get put in chokes and people are twisting your neck in all these positions that it's not supposed to be in, trying to choke you out or neck crank you. And for years, all that just went untreated. I'd be like, oh, my neck hurts. And, I don't know what to do. I'd go get a massage. But he really helped me out so much with all that by doing trigger point release.
Trigger point
release therapy. Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know enough to explain it well, but basically you find the part of the muscle that's injured, that's locked up, and you apply pressure to it. And you go straight to where the problem is, and you apply pressure, and that gets the muscle to release. And actually, this tool right here,
it's kind of like shiatsu.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
it's the same thing.
This tool right here, he recommends these for everybody. And so you just take these. It's called the Back Buddy, and you take, like, I use this one here a lot, and you just find a spot in your back that's tight. You just push into it, and it releases the knots. It unlocks muscles.
Shiatsu.
Is that it?
Yeah, thumb therapy.
Okay, yeah, probably.
With your thumb.
Yeah.
Or you find you dig in. You dig in and you find the tendon that's messed up, or you find the muscle that's corded up.
Yeah. Because I would lock up from the very top of my neck down to my shoulder blade, and sometimes for days I'd just be stuck like this. Like driving was horrible. I felt like I was a threat to everybody on the road because I couldn't check I couldn't check my blind spots. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. Sometimes, for an entire day, I'm just sitting here like this. I can hardly get out of bed.
About jiu-jitsu, because I also went to the Jiu-Jitsu Institute for years in Chicago.
Okay.
When I was a kid. But jiu-jitsu was always break something. It was never that much about grappling. was about breaking. Get in. How do I manipulate your elbow to break it?
Well, that's the end point. So it's really about controlling your opponent.
Yeah,
This is my explanation of it. It's really about controlling your body so that I can get you into a position where I have a hold of your arm or your ankle or whatever it is, and I can apply so much leverage to it that, yes, if you don't tap out, or if this is a life and death situation, I could break it or I could kill you. I could just choke you.
Yeah. There was.
But that's the end point. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the goal. The goal, at least this is the way I look at it, is just to control people. Like, again, going back to when I was a bouncer, there were 2 times where I put people in chokes and throw them out. Didn't choke them out to where they went unconscious, but I was able to control them, to put them in a choke, to control them enough, and then drag them outside and just say, all right, now you got to go. Get out of here. So no damage done. Yeah. And I think it'd be really important for to train police officers in jiu-jitsu, because how many videos do you see online of police officers trying to arrest people, and it's this whole ordeal, and it takes 3-4 guys, and they're stepping on the guy's head, and they can't cuff them, and it's like, if you know how to control people, if you know how to put somebody in a Kimura and put your shin on their face, or like do a proper knee on belly and hold people down, it just, I think it would make those processes far more civil. Is probably not the right word, but it would make them a lot less violent, and it just make the police officer's job a lot easier and safer for the person who they're trying to arrest. It's just better for everybody if they do that.
No, I agree with you 100%. But the training of cops is such an issue.
It's a joke. There is no training. Like they say that there's qualifications and you've got to pass this and that, but my God, I've been at the range shooting next to police officers, and I'm sure you have. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell? How is he missing the target at 7 yards? He's not even, not the bullseye. He's missing the whole thing. Like, he's on the cardboard.
That just happened to me with a Border Patrol guy.
Oh my God.
All his buddies were
It's atrocious.
He had to qualify or take, I'm looking, should I go over there? Listen, man, tighten up your offhand.
Yeah.
Your offhand's like your offhand's like a floppy fish.
Mm-hmm.
In here, and he had.
So just to explain to people real quick, whatever your dominant hand is that you're squeezing the trigger with, your support hand has to apply a considerable amount of pressure or force to keep the gun in line. Otherwise, it's just the recoil will take the gun to where it has the least resistance. Correct. So if you're right-handed, you should end up shooting to the left. If you're left-handed, you end up shooting to the right. So the support hand has to correct for that recoil.
Yeah. It's a vice. Equal pressure on both sides.
Yeah.
Some people even say 60% on your offhand.
I believe in equal on both sides.
Yeah, but I do too.
Yeah.
And not only that, and then he had his left thumb, his offhand, over this. And I go, look, what that prevents you using the meaty part of your hand to put on the grip.
Yeah.
Because you're creating a space there.
Yeah.
Put this thumb on top. Well, the guy took 2 shots. He goes, "Oh God, oh thanks."
Well, you wonder where his training is.
And I'm going, who trained this guy?
Right.
Not only that, the guy was like,
because in 5 seconds you made him so much better. Yeah. I've done that too with friends. Not with I don't talk to people at the range. It's the same thing at the gym. I see people doing ridiculous things at the gym. I never correct anybody because it's none of my business. Not at the gym. You want to keep shooting at the floor and missing all day. That's your problem. As far as I'm concerned, you can get online and you can watch videos by Travis Haley and Jerry Michalik and all these guys, and you can learn. Just to stay the same way I learned. If somebody asks me for help, yes, of course, I'm happy to help. But the point is, and many times I've had friends say, "Hey, take me shooting. I want to learn, or I want to get better." And within 5 minutes, they're so much better just because of simple things like you said, like correcting grip, or they're shooting like this, or they're using this kind of style.
Teacup.
Yeah, or whatever they're doing, and it's like like that. You can tell them, all right, focus on the front sight and equal pressure.
I never interfere either at firing range.
Yeah.
But I actually a while back I saw a guy holding his wrist like this. That
makes me cringe.
Like
even watching you do it right now, it bothers me.
It bothers me just doing it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go have to wash my hands. So, it was just amazing. I actually stopped the guy and I said, "Look, sir,
Yeah.
Here's what was going on. He was teaching his wife to shoot that way.
That's the worst. When they start teaching people, no, don't teach people.
That's why I went in. That's why I said, "Can I be of assistance to you, whether you like it or not?" I shot a couple of rounds in my life, so let me help you out here. And I got him. And then the other thing, and anticipating recoil and all that stuff.
Yeah.
People don't realize, and here's the thing that I'm concerned about. All these folks buying guns,
they don't have any training.
They don't have any training.
That's right.
And I always tell people, look how long it took you to learn how to tie your shoes.
Yeah, or to learn how to drive.
Or
whatever.
To learn how to drive. So you felt comfortable and it became routine. You need hundreds of repetitions. Watch a kid learning to tie
I used to tell people all the time at the gun store, first time gun buyers, buy 1,000 rounds of ammo and go shoot them all this weekend. Just go shoot 1,000 rounds. If you have the money, if you can afford it, go shoot 1,000 rounds. Because after 1,000 rounds, you just become a lot more comfortable holding a gun.
Right. I typically say it takes you 500 rounds to learn a gun.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, 500 is but what a lot of people do, they buy a box of ammo. They're like, oh, that'll be enough for a range session. I'm like, man, you're not like, if you just want to learn how the firearm functions, sure. You can learn in 50 rounds. You can learn with a snap cap. You don't even have to actually shoot anything.
That's true.
But if you want to actually get good at using it, what I tell people is you go buy a firearm and you take it home and you think that now you're safe. Like, that's it. Oh, I can protect myself now. Buy a pair of boxing gloves, take them home, don't have any boxing training, and then let's get in a fight and see what happens.
That's a very good analogy.
That's as simple as that.
Analogy.
Yeah.
That's well, people don't know about firearms. Firearms.
Well, I think people see them. They again go. People watch movies. They watch action movies. I watch action movies, and in the action movie, you always see the action from the hero's perspective, right? You always see the guy who's doing the ass kicking, who's giving the beating, who's shooting the bad guys. You never see it from the bad guy's perspective when they're attacking you, because the hero of the movie doesn't get his ass kicked, right?
Well, and I can't believe how many people miss him.
What do you mean?
Shooting at a guy.
Oh, yeah.
They got to hit him some fucking
machine
time.
Pistols and I know, right?
Yeah. Nobody knows how to shoot except the hero.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I know plenty of bad guys who are great shots.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Who really know firearms. And I know, well, I shouldn't say that many, because I would figure, based on my lifelong experience of dealing with criminals, I would say that maybe 10% of them know how to handle a firearm well.
Most of them hold it sideways.
Well, sideways, upside down.
Upside down.
How many people have I represented that shot the wrong guy?
Oh God.
How many cases have I seen or heard of?
Or shot themselves on accident, or shot their friend, there's always stuff like that. It's funny. One of the things about learning proper firearm handling is you can't watch an action movie anymore, or a police show or something like that, without cringing at how many people have their finger on the trigger.
Or the law.
It drives me crazy. As a lawyer, it's probably different. So you don't watch Law and Order?
I do, and sometimes I see some. I was just telling my wife yesterday. I was watching the program and I go, shit, I'm watching some good lawyering here. Then all of a sudden it just goes like, boop, boop, and it's,
Yeah.
fuck. They almost had me.
Yeah.
They almost had me.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh, that's a good cross-examination.
Uh-huh.
Then all of a sudden she's going, yeah, what size shoes were you wearing, officer? I go,
You ever seen the show Suits?
Huh?
You ever seen the show Suits? This is the main character, Harvey Specter.
No.
I really like his character in the show. I don't know how good I don't know how good the legal talk is in the show. I don't have the knowledge to assess it, but it was really entertaining. I enjoyed it. So he's some big time corporate lawyer in New York, and he's known as the best closer in the city. And I just thought it was fun. For you, it might bother you. Maybe that's one of the things.
It doesn't bother me.
Well, but you might not enjoy it because you're like, no, he didn't just do that, right?
I'm not intrigued.
The suspension of disbelief would have to be so great.
That's what drama has to be.
Yeah.
You have to, when you watch Sylvester Stallone shoot off a bazooka in a Volkswagen and nothing happens inside the Volkswagen, none of the windows are blown up. You're suspending belief.
Yeah.
And that's what drama does.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. When you see an opera.
Are you friends with Sylvester? Can we have him on the show?
Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, bring him in here. Do you know him? No? All right. I'm kidding.
The guy.
You never know.
The guy did well. The guy did beautiful for himself.
Yeah.
I like some of his movies. I've enjoyed most of his movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
But I also realize that they're movies.
Of course.
Yeah,
you have to remove that element and just enjoy it. Just enjoy the show.
Well, that's the beauty of drama. It takes you out of yourself. It takes you into a different realm.
Sure.
And that's what drama is supposed to do. And that's what whether you do it in action drama or whether it's romantic drama, But I'm such an old whore that I refuse. It's hard for me to let go of reality. At a certain point. Can I take a phone call here?
Of course.
Hang on.
All right. We'll pause.
Wife.
That's all right.
It's my wife. Hi, baby.
I'll just mute your microphone, and then people will only hear me.
I'm still sitting here.
Ken's on a phone call.
Chatting with Jamie.
Just so you guys know.
You can watch this on
she can watch it live.
You can watch it live.
Do you want to have her on the show? We can connect your phone, and she can say hello.
You want to connect the phone and say hello? Yeah, I call you her boyfriend.
Say again?
I call you my wife's boyfriend.
You call me your wife's boyfriend?
Yeah. Because one time we were at the gun shop together.
Oh.
And she leaned over and started grabbing that little pineapple thing.
Oh yeah,
and I said,
my pineapple necklace?
Yeah, your pineapple necklace. I go, shit, baby, I thought you were going to jump over the counter and rip it off his neck.
Yeah, that's happened a lot.
Yeah,
the pineapple and all the other various necklaces that I have.
Yeah, we're still shooting the breeze. I figure a couple more minutes.
What time do you got to go? We've been here for about 2.5 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll give it a little bit more. And I ought to roll out by 5. Have dinner or I'll kick your ass.
Oh, you wanted that. I actually muted your mic. I should have left your mic on.
and have dinner I like or I'll kick your ass when I get home.
Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, you mean I have to go to sleep sometime? Okay.
I'm going to get flagged.
I won't. Love you, baby. Bye.
This show is brought to you by. Just kidding.
Huh?
Oh, that's hilarious.
We talk shit to each other. 30.
That's a healthy relationship.
30 years. We talked shit to each other yesterday.
Yeah.
Last night, I got a fart in bed. She goes, "Oh, go to another bed, you stinky motherfucker." I said, "Baby," she said, "Oh my God." Here's what she said to me. She goes, "You wouldn't do this with me. You wouldn't cut a fart like that in bed if you were with some other broad, would you?"
Probably not.
And I go, "I don't know, but it'd be worth finding out." I said, "I thought you were asleep." She goes, "I was." It woke me up, you asshole. We were like, we couldn't fucking stop laughing after that.
You woke me up.
She goes, "I had a dream I was stepping in dog shit." Oh, we were laughing here. That was just fucking hilarious, man.
I had a horrible dream.
I had a dream. She was making that up, obviously, but that was her kind of comeback line.
She was heckling you.
I thought I was asleep. I'm sorry, baby. I thought you were asleep. I'm reading my iPad, right?
She was heckling you.
Huh?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. She said, she said I had a nightmare that I was stepping in dog shit. That's what she said. That's what woke me up. She goes, now I'm remembering. She goes, and I woke up and you
it's just you right here.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a good marriage. We get along good. She's a good old lady.
30 years, huh?
Yeah, 30 years.
Been married longer than I've been alive.
Oh, God, that hurts to hear. That hurts to hear.
Were you, well, no, you weren't married. You didn't get married in church, did you? Just,
No, my first marriage, I got married in church.
Okay.
Because I married a Catholic girl.
Is this your second marriage, I assume? Yeah.
This is my second marriage.
I had a professor in high school, not in high school, in college. I think he taught political science. And I don't remember anything from that class except he once said, I tell all my religious friends, don't get married in a church until you're at least 65. That was his advice. And that's the only thing I remember from that class.
The reason I got married in church is this. I married my first wife. I met her in April. I was back from Nam after my second deployment of 6 months. I was going to leave in July. Matter of fact, I shipped out on July 20th, 1966 for 13 months. I met her in April. By the time I married her in July, she was a month pregnant. Okay? I didn't know this girl.
You didn't waste any time.
Well, I'd been overseas. I got home, Guess what? Right. Guess what there isn't in war?
How old were you?
Fuck, I was 18, 19. But guess what they don't have in war? Pussy.
Yeah. So it is like pie over there.
Yeah. There's no pie.
There's no pie.
There's no pie.
Yeah.
You're out in the field. You're not in the cities. You're not near the skivvy houses,
right?
The whore houses or anything. You're out in the field. You're coming back to a goddamn compound.
Yeah.
Where you're worried about being overrun every night. And taking in either sniper or mortar fire or whatever. You're running patrols and ambushes every day. I was the corpsman. I went out everything that went out of there. I went out. So I ran. There were 17 of us, 4 teams of 4 guys, and I was the 5th man on each team. These guys went out Monday, Tuesday. These guys went out Wednesday, Thursday. These guys Friday, Saturday, etc. And everybody rested 6 days, right? But I was the 5th man on each team because I was the doc. Everything that went out of there, I had to be on.
Yeah.
So I was out, it was either an ambush, a patrol, or a raid every fucking night. So now I'm back, I spent some time at home with my mom and, I tried to look up some old girlfriends, anything to get laid,
right?
So
there's no Tinder back then.
What?
There's no Tinder back then.
Oh man,
there's no dating.
Yeah. Oh, you're back.
Was there a hotline? Or?
No, there's nothing. There's nothing. I mean, I remember
a phone book.
No, man. I remember walking 10 blocks over to one girl's house to let her know I was in town.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
that's right. That's before phones. Yeah.
No, they had phones, not cell phones. But I had lost her phone number. There's no way of getting a hold of anybody.
There was landlines 50 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there were landlines. There were landlines in the 1920s.
Rotary phones.
Yeah. I still got one at home.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, I still got one at home.
Except when you have to watch that zero crawl back. Oh my God, nothing so painful.
Yeah. But anyway, I remember that. So now I'm back in San Diego. I go to the PX. I see this beautiful girl. I hit on her. She likes me back. We start going out. By the time I'm ready to go back, she's pregnant. So I married her.
Yeah.
I married her because I figured if I got killed, the kid, my child, who's my oldest son, Kenny, would at least get the benefits. You know what I'm saying? I'd already gotten a girl pregnant at age 17. But she gave up that baby for adoption without me knowing. So now I get another girl pregnant. I don't want, my conscience is really.
So you never found that first child?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
yeah. My beautiful daughter Kim. I found her about 15, 16 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or she found me and we found each other. We never stopped. Neither one of us stopped looking, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's why I get married in church. I come back from Vietnam. Again, 13 months without sex. I'm fucking 19.
Yeah.
I come back. Rita, my first wife, meets me in Chicago.
Rita.
Yeah.
That's my mother's name.
Oh, nice German-Irish girl. Anyway, Rita and I just have a wonderful honeymoon together, and then we go in Chicago. We go visit her parents. Her mom doesn't want me to sleep with her. We got a goddamn 5-month-old kid, We just came back from a week of nonstop sex in Chicago. I'm 19, she's 20. We already have a baby. We're married.
Yeah.
And we were really into each other too.
Yeah.
So anyway, her mom doesn't want me to sleep with her until we're married in church. Strict Irish Catholic.
I get it.
Her father was German. The mother was Irish. That was a mixed marriage in Wisconsin back then.
Mm-hmm.
A German and an Irishman, a German guy and an Irish woman. So, so there was a lot of pressure on Rita to get married in church from her whole family. They couldn't see us as a legitimate couple until that happened. So I got married in church. I said, it's not going to hurt me any. What do I have to do? Cross myself, kneel. I know the deal.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in it, but I did it for them. And everybody was happy.
Right. Yeah, well, that's good. Keep everybody happy.
Yeah, that's wasn't going to hurt me.
Right.
Well,
it's just an extra step. If you do someday go through it, if you are married in a church and you have to go through a divorce, it's just an extra step.
No, it isn't.
It's not.
No,
not in the States, maybe.
No, not
because in Lebanon, it's getting a divorce from the church in Lebanon is almost impossible. It's really, really difficult.
Right.
Like I know people who were legally divorced, but it took them years to get divorced from the church.
Why would it matter?
I don't know exactly how that works, but
why would it matter?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the details of how all that works.
So, it's called canon law. Church law. Canon, Cannon, or Canon. I forgot how. I don't know if I'm talking about the camera or the law.
Yeah.
But anyway. Canon law is church law, and why would it matter? It never mattered to me one way or the other. You get a divorce, it's the civil authorities who are going to divvy up the kids, the property, set alimony,
right.
And the rights of the parties and the children of the marriage,
right.
The division of property, not the church.
Right.
The interesting thing about the church is that it was a very powerful institution. It even has its own army. The popes had armies. Bishops had armies.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Modern armies.
How long ago?
Well, up to about the French Revolution, in the late 1700s, when you talk about private armies, let's say I am a charitable organization and I'm doing work in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And I want to protect today, I'm talking about today, I can hire a 15-man contingent to provide protection for the missionaries during my work. And guess what now? I'm a charitable organization with a private army. Bishops, were the bishoprics were political positions during the Middle Ages. If you have one son, he inherits all the property, so you don't break up the estate. It's called primogeniture. Mm-hmm. Your second son goes into the military. He gets a colonelcy somewhere in some regiment. And your third son goes into the church. Right? And if you have any more kids, well, whatever you want to do with them.
Yeah.
But that bishop, if he landed an estate, he could own an estate like a feudal lord. And he could have an army.
Interesting.
So you could say, I'm Bishop Smith.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's just this is the first I hear of it.
Oh, private armies have been along for ever since, Jesus, I can't think of a time before the age of the fall of Rome, where people, after the fall of Rome, when there weren't such a thing as private armies. There were no national armies. And Napoleon became famous because he instituted that. The Treaty of Westphalia, which is in 15-something rather.
What's it called? The Treaty of
Westphalia.
Okay.
Did away with all the principalities, all the dukedoms, the independent governments, and basically set up modern boundaries for nations as we know them. Before them, you have, Charlemagne could be the king of Gaul, but not of Burgundy, and have, or also the king of a part of Italy, So he would have people running that wherever he was, wherever they were, they would be his vassals, but they could have armies. So if I named a bishop, if I'm the king and I appoint you to a bishopric, well, guess what? We're in the feudal system. You provide me with men to go fight the war. All right? So, I may not tax you because you were a body of God, but you would have to provide, and you would have to defend your territory.
Yeah.
So you would have your army to do that. The Treaty of Westphalia sets the boundaries for Spain, England, France, Germany, and a lot of the European countries that we know them in Western Europe. Right? Before that, you could be the Duke of Avignon, France, and you had your own private army and fuck the king. Right? Or guess what? I'm going to become the king.
Yeah.
Because my army is bigger than the king's.
Right. Yeah. Just whoever's more powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you start that, and Napoleon is the guy who first. How much does a standing army cost? I mean,
I have no idea.
A lot. Old Sun Tzu said.
A dragon in Game of Thrones. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Well, yeah.
She duped the guy. She pretended she was going to give him a dragon for his army, and then the dragon just burnt him, and she took his army anyway. Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool, yeah.
I mean, I would always watch when the dragons were up. Otherwise, too much fucking drama.
Oh, but it's so good, though. That's such a good show.
That is such a good that's show. My problem with drama. I can't get into the drama.
Okay.
I'm looking at, this guy's got to do this. This guy's just shoot the fucker and get it over with. That's, you know what I'm saying? I have to act this way and I have to act that way. And just don't jump through the hoops. Just shoot the fucking guy. Realistic situations where there's violence would last all of 10 fucking minutes in the movie.
For sure. Yeah.
A movie like Straw Dogs, where you isolate people and then you have a bunch of bullies, who have firearms, but the victims don't. If you take that scenario, people being isolated, I'm going to go to a weekend retreat, and all of a sudden bad guys are breaking in because there's a hidden treasure in the basement, sort of bullshit. All you need's a fucking gun.
But I've always wondered how long battles lasted before guns, when they were fought with swords and bows.
They were a lot bloodier
and spears. I'm sure they were a lot bloodier, but how long did they really last? I mean, of course,
a couple of days.
It probably depends on the size of the army too.
No, a couple of days.
Because the first group, they all kill each other, and then comes the second group. And
it all depends.
There's the guys on horses, and there's the guys behind them, and then there's
cavalry,
the archers, but like realistically, how long could you actually fight with a sword before you just don't have any more fuel to fight? I mean, the most conditioned athletes in the world can barely fight 15 minutes in an octagon,
right?
Without swinging a sword, just punching and kicking and grappling. And so you're wearing this armor, and you're carrying a shield that's made out of metal that probably weighs.
How long did the Battle of the Marathon take place?
I've never even heard of that. I suck at history.
A marathon is a 26-mile race.
Oh, you said the Battle
of Marathon. It's named after a battle that was fought.
Oh, because the guy ran to deliver a letter or something.
No, he ran to deliver the news.
And then he died.
Miles.
And, and that's why they set
what
the
was
length
his
of the
name?
marathon.
Felipe or something like that. Battle.
I didn't realize there was a battle called Marathon.
Yeah,
I thought maybe it was the guy's last name.
No.
I've heard about
Joe Marathon.
Well, I heard the story that's why people run 26.2 miles.
Yeah. And then he dropped dead.
But wait, Phidippides ran the first marathon.
That was correct. That's his name, Phidippides.
Oh, is that the guy?
Yeah, good call.
Oh, okay.
But Marathon.
I guess I do know something about history.
Yo, Philly Marathon. But what was the famous battle of the 300, the Spartans?
What
was the name of that battle?
I'm surprised I knew Phidippides. I have no idea.
Yeah, it just boink. It came up out of some lecture you heard or something you read.
A TV show, actually.
Yeah. And but anyway, that's how long these things
from
last.
College, that's for sure.
How long does it take for a bunch of and not only that, the whole trip, the whole thing of those battles was push and shove up close, and whoever broke first, they started running. Then everybody ran after them and killed them.
Yeah.
And slaughtered them. There's some very famous battle scenes that have been dug up by archaeologists, and they see the devastating blows that people received, spike, perfectly square spike, a cut, a clean cut across your whole jawline where your whole face is cut off. I mean, those things were horrendous. The damage done to those in those battles. People talk about the violence of guns. We're not half as violent as we were.
I've always thought about that too.
We're not half as violent as we were. I'll tell you why. If I'm unarmed and you have a sword, you own me.
Yeah.
You own me. Any good fighter. I don't care how good of a martial artist I am. If you have a spear, and you have or a good knife, or a sword, you own me. What am I going to do? Throw little ninja stars at you? Yeah, you're going to take two of them and then you're going to fucking cleave me from here to here.
Yeah.
Right? Or put a spear through the middle of my chest.
Yeah.
They controlled, in order to have viable weapons, it was just a privilege of the upper class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long does it take to train a mounted knight? Look at the equipment. The tournaments, the jousting tournaments that you saw, they would participate in those to make money. If I beat you, I take your horse, I take your saddle, I take your armor, and I sell it. And guess what? Back then, the price of that was the equivalent of a house today. So, you had to be good, and then you could sell your services to a prince or somewhere. They were all mercenaries.
Yeah. No, we're good. I don't know. One of the cameras beeped. I was wondering. Yeah, well, we're good.
So, I mean, when you develop firearms, here's what I tell people about, let's say, a Glock 19. Guess what? With the Glock 19, you can defend yourself against 3 men. You can defend against yourself a guy that outweighs you by 40 pounds and has a 4-inch reach on you.
You probably could have rewritten history if you had it 1,000 years ago.
If you have a gun,
yeah,
you can defend yourself against the guy that's smaller and thinner, but he's going to beat you to death with a fucking lead pipe. That's what guns are for. They equalize the fight.
Yeah. Well, what's that famous saying?
God didn't make women equal. Colonel Colt did.
That's not how I heard it.
How did you?
I heard God created men and Colt made them equal, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That. I've used that for women. Oh, Jesus. What was the name?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
What was the name of that historian? Will Durant.
My camera just went down. Maybe we should wrap this up.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Will Durant.
People can still see you. They just get. That's okay.
Will Durant, a famous sociologist. Firearms helped the middle class develop. They took the power away from the nobles. The nobles used to hide in castles. Now you have powder and ball, and you can break down those walls. And it allowed the rise of the middle class in Europe, of the business class.
Yeah.
Stop and think about that.
Yeah.
Talk about the impact of a new discovery. It made men the foot soldier, the equal of the aristocratic mounted knight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it devastated. It did away with the samurai class in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, and we're still fighting that battle socially.
We'll have to get into that at another
another time.
Yeah, because I don't know what just happened over there. Oh, I think I'm
Okay.
back. Yeah, I'm back. Look. Hey, all right,
You
let's
back?
get into it. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Now
Now it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, you probably got to go. It's
Yeah.
been we've been at this for almost 3 hours.
Having fun.
Yep, it went back down. So it's better to just end it because I don't know what's going on right now.
All right,
I'll have to look into this. Thanks a lot for coming in.
I had a blast.
So
You're
did
an
I.
interesting
Thank
kid.
you. This was
You're
very fun.
Next time I'll bring a couple of history. I got a book for you. It's called The History of Warfare.
Okay, I'd like to check that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to you.
Well, thanks for coming in. Anything you want to add before we go?
No, it's been a blast, man. I wish you continued success.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
I hope I get you 1 million subscribers.
I'm sure you will. Thank you, sir.
Take care,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Bye.